Hello friends. This is Fanfic Adventure. How are you all? So in this video, we will see what if Naruto become the fairy tale's god slayer. But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, if possible, share this video with your friends. Now without wasting any more time, let's begin the story. Magic, Maho. It is the physical embodiment of the spirit. When the physical spirit of an organism connects with the spiritual flow of nature, the spirit forms magic as a product of the connection. The particles of magic are also called eternano. Only 10% of the world's population is able to use magic, which is noted to keep a balance between ordinary people and those with magic. It takes an enormous amount of concentration and mental ability to use magic, and those that are capable of using magic are called mages, madoshi, or wizards. Mages reside all over the world of Earthland, Asurondo, and these mages come together to form what are known as guilds, Gerudo, to learn more about magic and gain bonds of camaraderie, as well as to take jobs to support themselves. These jobs range from as simple as delivering a package, to as hard as killing huge monsters. Guilds are found all over Earthland, but the highest concentration of magic guilds are found in the Kingdom of Fury, Fury Okoku, a permanently neutral nation with a population of 17 million, which is home to many famous guilds, but it is one particular guild in this country which has produced many legends and will continue to do so for years to come. This guild's name is Fairy Tale, Firi Tiru. It was founded in X686 by a group of 4 people, 3 young men and 1 teenage girl. The 3 men were named Purhito Gablog, Warad Sequin, and Yuri Drayar. These men were originally treasure hunters, until they ran into the 4th founder of Fairy Tale in that same year. The teenage girl's name was Mavis Vermilion and she was the first master of Fairy Tale. Mavis Vermilion was a 13-year-old girl who had grown up pretty much alone on Tenro Island. She had very long, wavy blonde hair which went down to her feet, with one lock pointing straight upwards, large green eyes with no irises, and a childlike build. She wore a frilly, pink layered robe with a red ribbon tied in a bow around her neck. Around the chest area were 3 blue diamond patterns with 2 blue triangles above. Each series of these was outlined in a hot pink. She wore wing-like adornments around her ears and small hoop earrings. She also seemed to prefer going barefoot. Mavis was only guild master for 10 years. At age 23 she passed away from a heart defect, never having fulfilled her dream of meeting fairies. However, during her time as the first master of Fairy Tale, she oversaw the creation of 3 incredible spells, which would come to be known in the 3 legendary fairy magics: Yosei Maho, Fairy Law, Fairy Ro, Fairy Glitter, Fairy Garita, and Fairy Sphere, Fairy Sophia. Before she passed away, she handed the title of master over to her fellow founder and friend Purhito Gablog, making him the 2nd master of Fairy Tale. She was buried on Tenro Island, and the place was made a holy ground for the guild. Purhito was a young man of average height, with slicked back brown hair, and wore a high-colored black jacket, with huge shoulder pads all with blue-green accents, and a blue-green cape attached, black pants, and combat boots. Originally he had use of both of his eyes, but after an encounter with the Dark Guild that controlled Magnolia, originally he lost his right eye and took to wearing eye patch over that eye. In his older years he was tall. His hair had grown long and became silver white but remained slicked back. His outfit changed somewhat to sport a light cape bearing Fairy Tale's mark on the back, complete with a dark fur-lined mantle, and what looked like a loose robe below it. He also carried around a long staff, with its top shaped yet again like Fairy Tale's symbol, and he grew a long white beard. Purhito was master of Fairy Tale for at least 30 years. He oversaw the first increase in the guild's numbers, as well as its popularity. When he was ready to retire, he handed the reins over to a man of 40, named Makarov. Warad Sequin was a tall and very well-built man. His head, somewhat rectangular in shape, was covered with messy black hair on its top. Warad dressed himself in a sleeveless top with green accents, with a belt and trousers as well as combat boots. Warad used a special kind of magic called green magic, Midori no Maho. Not much is known about what happened to Warad in his later years. However, what is known is that he became a member of the 10 Wizard Saints, a group of 10 of the most powerful mages in all of Fury. Yuri Drayar was a tall young man in his later teens, nearing his early 20s, with spiky blonde hair and dark eyes. He donned a dark-colored shirt, a jacket, and long pants, and combat boots. Yuri would be most famous for being the father of the third master of fairy tale, Makarov Dreyar. Upon his son turning 18, he disappeared and no one knows his current whereabouts or status. Makarov Dreyar, the third master of fairy tale, was born in X696 to Yuri Dreyar and his wife. In his youth Makarov was a man of below average height, and had inherited his father's spiky blonde hair, though his own stuck straight up. His attitude as a young man was rather impatient and he never hesitated to start fights with his fellow guildmates. Makarov became an S-class mage, the highest class of mage there is, of the guild at 20. He gained the nickname, the Titan, due to his unique magic called Titan magic, Giayanto Maho, which allows him to grow to enormous proportions. Makarov was a member of a team of 6 including himself, called Team Makarov, and was close with each member, especially the only female member of the team Porlyuzika who was 15 years his junior. Makarov was made third master of fairy tale by Purhito in X736, at the age of 40. In X741 he was named as a member of the 10 wizard saints. Satan Daimado. Makarov himself had children, 2 sons by 2 women. The first was born to Makarov and his wife, and was given the name Ivan, who unlike the rest of his family was born with black hair. Ivan grew up to be powerful in his own right, however he always had a darker nature than the rest of his family. Makarov's wife died when Ivan was 2 years old. The second was born to Makarov and Porlyuzika, who had been there to comfort the guild master when his wife died, causing them to grow even closer. The boy was named Minato, and he like his father inherited the Dreyar family's spiky blonde hair. Minato himself grew up to be powerful, some would say even more so than his brother and father. Ivan Dreyar is a tall and muscular man, standing at about 6 feet 5, and weighing a good 250 pounds. He has black hair which like the rest of his family's is spiky but only on top of his head and it's short. He does not bear any resemblance to his father or brother. Ivan uses Shikigami magic, Shikigami Maho, primarily, which gives him the ability to turn objects into paper dolls. In X761, Ivan and his wife had a son whom they named Laxus, and the child inherited the Dreyar family looks, including the spiky blonde hair. Minato Dreyar is tall himself, though shorter than his brother, standing at 6 feet 1, and weighing 165 pounds, with a lean, athletic build, made more for speed. He, like every male in his family, except his brother, has spiky blonde hair, with 2 jaw-length bangs framing his face. Unlike the rest of his family though, he has bright blue eyes, which according to his mother was a recessive gene passed down by her, as her own father had blue eyes. Minato became an S-class mage, under his father's leadership, at the age of 16. At the time he was the youngest person ever to become S-class. Minato earned the name, Fairy Tale's Yellow Flash, due to his use of a combination teleportation magic, Shunken no Maho, and seal magic, Shiru Maho, which is so fast that all anyone can see before they're taken down is AF. The name of the spell that earned him this name is called Hiraishin, Flying Thunder God. He also is noted for his use of wind, K's Maho, and lightning magic, Kaminari K Kakushu Maho, and his basic knowledge of fire, Hai no Maho, earth, Suchi Maho, and water magic, Mizuke Kakushu Maho. He also created a magic which allowed him to form pure Eternano into any shape he wished. He named it Energy Make Magic, Enerugi Maiku Maho. When he was only 13 years old, Minato met and fell in love with the girl who would eventually become his wife. That girl's name was Kushina Uzumaki. Kushina Uzumaki joined Fairy Tail at 13 years old, after her home on the island nation of Land of Whirlpools was destroyed and her friends and family all killed. When she first met her guildmates she proclaimed loudly that she would be the 4th master of Fairy Tail, and the 2nd female master after Mavis. This caused most to laugh, except Minato, who smiled at her and told her his dream was to take over for his father and become 4th master himself. As Kushina grew up, she grew more and more beautiful. Kushina as an adult is a woman who stands at 5 feet 4, with a slender yet feminine build, fair skin, violet eyes, and fiery red hair which falls down to her shapely ass, and 2 strands that frame both sides of her face. She wears a black hair clip in her hair, parting it on the left to keep it out of her eyes. Kushina made S-class at the age of 19, and became known in the guild as the red hot-blooded habanero, due to her temper. Around Fury, however, she became known as Fairy Tale's Queen of Blades, due to her use of a special kind of re-equip magic, Konso Maho, called Blades Magic, Yeba Maho, which allowed her to only call on different kinds of swords. She was also a master of seal magic, chain magic, Rensa Maho, and rune magic, Rune Maho, and slightly proficient with water magic and wind magic. Eventually Minato and Kushina began to date, when they were 17, after he saved her during a mission to take out a dark guild, she was knocked unconscious by one of the members and kidnapped to be sold as a sex slave. Minato found her by following her red hair, defeated the kidnapper, and took her back to the guild bridal style in his arms. At the time he said he found her because of the trail she left with her hair, and that he noticed it right away because he'd always found her red hair to be beautiful. It was at that moment she fell in love with the master's second-born. At 21 both Minato and Kushina were named to the 10 Wizard Saints, which was a proud moment for Makarov. However, he was even prouder when a year later Minato and Kushina married and the young redhead became his actual daughter. At 23 Minato and Kushina left the guild, and took a leave of absence from the Wizard Saints due to Kushina falling pregnant with their first child. This happened about a year after the birth of Ivan's son Laxus. Makarov was just happy as could be that he was going to be a grandfather again, and the entire guild congratulated the young couple. However, there was one member of the guild who did not share the rest of the guild's enthusiasm, and that was Ivan. As Ivan saw it, the pregnancy of his sister-in-law and impending fatherhood of his little brother was just another way for the brat to show him up. Ivan had developed a deep-seated hatred for his baby brother because of all his accomplishments and all the praise he received, things that he felt should have been his as the older brother. So Ivan sat back and plotted to gain his revenge against Minato, through their children someday. And so it was that Minato and Kushina moved to a town located on the border between Fury and the woodland country of Bosco. The town they moved to was called Konoha. Konoha was a small town, with a population of only around 2,000, and of those 2,000 people, around 300 were mages. Konoha's leader is Hiruzen Sarutobi, a former wizard saint called the Professor, for his extensive knowledge of magic, and good friend to Makarov, who welcomed the young couple with open arms. Hiruzen Sarutobi was an old man, 2 years older than Makarov. At 68, he was short but not as much as Makarov, still being over 5 feet tall, with spiky white hair that in his youth was brown, and a gray goatee. While he was famed for being a powerful mage himself and a wizard saint once, he was most famous for training 3 of the greatest mages alive today, Jiraiya Gama, Tsunade Senju, and Orochimaru Habi. Jiraiya Gama is a man in his early 40s, with long, spiky white hair that's tied into a ponytail at the back that goes to his thighs. He is tall at 6 feet 4 and pretty muscular at 240 pounds. Jiraiya is known as the Toad Sage. He is a master of Rune Maho, Ikriture, Ekaridiuru, Seal, Fire, Earth, and Toad Magic, Hikigairu Maho, and it is for the last that he has his title. Jiraiya is an author and a spy master, running the Rune Knight's spy unit. He is also a massive pervert, and the first time he met Kushina nearly lost his balls for making a perverted comment about her breasts. Tsunade Senju is a fair-skinned woman in her early 40s but looks 20s, with long blonde hair tied into 2 loose ponytails. She is 5 feet 3 and has very large breasts. She is regarded as one of the most beautiful women in all of Earthland. She is also the granddaughter of one of the mages who founded Konoha, Hashirama Senju, who himself was said to be godlike. Tsunade is known as both the legendary for her gambling habits, and the world's greatest doctor for her healing magic, Shiyu Maho. She is an expert in fire, earth, lightning, and water magics, and a master of healing and slug magic, Namakuji Maho. Her healing prowess is so great that she is capable of healing wounds that most other doctors would say are untreatable. She used to head the medical unit of the Rune Knights, but she quit after the death of her lover Dan Kato, which she was unable to stop, and now wanders the world with her apprentice and Dan's niece Shizune Kato. Orochimaru Habi is a pale-skinned man in his 40s, with long, straight black hair. He has slitted golden eyes with purple markings around the sockets, and elongated teeth which makes him look like a snake. He's average height, only 5 feet 8 and weighs 145 pounds. He is called the Mad Scientist because of his thirst for knowledge of every single spell in the world, and the unethical experiments he engaged in as a member of the Rune Knights. Orochimaru is adept at all elemental magics, Sayare Maho. He is an expert in seal and rune magics, and he has been accredited with creating what is known as curse seal magic. Noroshiru Maho. He is also a master of snake magic. Habi no Maho. He was once the head of the Bureau of Magical Development, however he was caught doing unethical experiments on children and young adults in an effort to attain immortality and was chased out by the Rune Knights and replaced by a man named Brain. He has been said to have become a dark mage, Yami Madoshi, and founded the new dark guild, Yami Garudo, called Hidden Sound, Otogakure. However, no one has been able to substantiate these rumors. The Dryers lived peacefully in Konoha, made many friends, including with the heads of 4 branches of the Rune Knights, those being Shikaku Nara, head of the intelligence unit, Inoichi Yamanaka, head of the interrogation unit, Choza Akamichi, head of the combat unit, and Heishi Hyuga, head of the tracking unit, and their wives. Also during Kushina's pregnancy, Minato took on 3 teenagers as pseudo-students, teaching them how to better utilize their magic power, and giving them pointers on their respective magics. Those 3 were named Kakashi Hitaki, son of the infamous former wizard saint, the White Fang, Sakumo Hitaki, Obito Uchiha, and outcast of Konoha's Uchiha clan, and Rin Nohara, who came from an offshoot of the Inuzuka clan of Konoha. Kakashi was the one closest to Minato of the 3, because Kakashi specialized in lightning magic, which was one of the blonde's specialties. The boy adopted the Dryers as parenti. Mother and father he never had, as his mother died at his birth and his father committed suicide when he was 5. Then it happened, on October 10, x 763, Kushina went into labor. It took 6 hours, but after much screaming, pushing, and breaking of Minato's hand, they finally had their child, and it was a son. The baby was born with a full head of the Drayar blonde hair, though not yet spiky, and his father's bright blue eyes. However, the most unique feature of the child was the 3 whisker-like birth marks on each of his cheeks, which made him look even more adorable in his mother's opinion. The day after the birth, Minato contacted his father to let him know he had another grandson, and the old man was ecstatic. When he asked what the boy's name was, Minato told him they named him Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki Drayar. The old man knew instantly that they had named him with the maelstrom meaning of that name, and told his son it was a strong name and that he had no doubt that Naruto would be a powerful mage in the future, then said he'd be in Konoha in a couple of days. A few days later Makarov was as good as his word, however he brought along 2-year-old Laxus, as Ivan was away on an S-class job. The first time the little blonde saw his baby cousin he took to him right away, and warmed both Minato and Makarov's hearts, and filled them with hope that the 2 cousins would be closer than Minato and Ivan were. The whole time he was in Konoha, Makarov spoiled his new grandson, and spent time drinking and talking about the old days with Sarutobi. When the man and Laxus left finally, everyone was in good spirits, and Minato said that he and Kushina would be coming back to the guild 2 weeks after Naruto's first birthday and that they would stay in contact. And for that first year, everything was great. Naruto grew well, and even made friends with the infant children of the Nara, Yamanaka, Akamichi, and even the Haruno, a civilian family. On his first birthday Naruto had a huge party, with guests that included his father's students, old man Sarutobi and his 2 boys, his sometimes babysitter Kurenai Yuhi, his grandfather Makarov and 3-year-old cousin Laxus, and especially his little friends his age. Shikamaru Nara, the son of Shikaku and Yoshino Nara, who greatly resembled his own father and was just as lazy, is heir to the Nara clan. He has black hair which is actually tied into a little spiky high ponytail like most men in his family. The Nara clan are known throughout Earthland for 2 things. The first, and what makes them perfect to head the intelligence division of the Rune Knights, is that every member is a genius. The second is their unique brand of shadow magic, Kage Maho, which allows them to link their own shadows to those of other people and bind them, causing the other person to repeat every action that the Nara makes. Ino Yamanaka, the daughter of Inoichi and his wife, heiress of the Yamanaka clan, who like her father has platinum blonde hair and blue-green eyes. The Yamanaka clan have headed the interrogation unit of the Rune Knights for 3 generations so far. The reason for this is their unique brand of mind magic, Kokura no Maho. Choji Akamichi, the son of Choza and Shizoru, who has spiky brown hair, and is quite the pudgy baby, is heir to the Akamichi clan. The Akamichi clan have headed the combat division of the Rune Knights for 3 generations, for 2 reasons. First is their above-average physical strength and durability granted to them by their large bulk, as the majority of Akamichi men can reach heights of up to 6 feet 10, and weigh as much as 500 pounds. The second is their unique brand of Titan magic, which allows them to enlarge only parts of their bodies and not the whole body itself. Lastly is Sakura Haruno, daughter to Kazashi and Mebuki Haruno, who own a clothing shop, and inherited her pink hair color from her father while gaining her mother's jade green eyes. The Harunos own a clothing store in Konoha and have made a good living from it. Kiba Inuzuka, second and youngest child of the matriarch of the Inuzuka clan, Sume, younger brother to the heiress of the clan Hana. He has wild spiky brown hair and brown eyes. He looks slightly feral because the Inuzuka clan use a special brand of animal magic, Animaru Maho, called dog magic, Inu no Maho, which involves dogs. Shino Aburame, son of Shibi Aburame and his wife, heir to the Aburame clan. Shino has bushy dark brown hair and dark eyes. His family is known to also use a special brand of animal magic called insect magic, Mushi no Maho. Hinata Hyuga, the only daughter to Heishi and Hitome Hyuga, heiress to the Hyuga clan. Hinata is a pale-skinned little babe, with short, dark blue hair which she inherited from her mother, and the white eyes of her clan with a hint of lavender. The Hyuga clan are well known for two things: their palm magic, Pamu Maho, which they use in conjunction with their special hand-to-hand style called Gentle Fist, and their unique brand of eye magic, Mi Maho, known as White Eye, Baikugan, which allows them X-ray and telescoping vision, as well as giving them a 360-degree range of sight, and the ability to see the magic systems of people. Its activation is denoted by the bulging of the veins around the Hyuga's eyes. Lastly is Sasuke Uchiha, the second son of Fugaku and Makoto Uchiha, the heads of the Uchiha clan, and younger brother to the heir of the clan Itachi Uchiha. Sasuke is a baby with black eyes, and chin-length black hair which is spiky in the back and looks like a duck's ass. The Uchiha clan are also known for two things: their mastery of fire magic and their own unique eye magic called Copywheel Eye, Sharingan, which is denoted by the iris becoming red in color, with any number of black tone markings from 1 to 3 around the pupil. The party was a huge success, with Naruto gaining many presents, and all the children playing together and getting filthy as children do. When it was all said and done, everyone headed back to their homes within the village, as Makarov and Laxus returned to Magnolia, with the old man saying he looks forward to seeing them in 2 weeks. However, what no one knew is that tragedy would strike and the world would lose 2 great mages for nearly 10 years, while their son would go missing for 13 years. Border between Fury and Bosco, Konoha, October 13th, X 764, nighttime. It is a peaceful night in the town of Konoha, just like any other. The weather is fair, and the people are going about their usual nightly routines, most shutting up shop to return home for the evening. Families are having dinner and settling in for a quiet and restful night, including the Dreyar family. However, that peace is not to last, as tonight is a night that will change the fates of everyone in Konoha, but especially that of Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar. The hour is close to 11 p.m., and Hiruzen Sarutobi sits in his office still, finishing going over all the paperwork associated with being the leader of Konoha. He looks out the window to his office and frowns. For a while now he has had a feeling of foreboding, however he cannot for the life of him figure out why. As he finishes the last piece of paperwork for the night, his foreboding feeling is proven correct when suddenly he and the rest of the town hear an incredibly loud roar from the sky. Hiruzen rushes out of his office to the roof, and as he looks up to find the source of the roar, and when he gazes at the night sky he sees it. In the air, quickly descending towards Konoha, is a creature of legend, a dragon. From what he can see in the dark and at the distance it is from the town, the great beast is yellow in color, and its body appears to be covered in lighting. The old man springs into action, flaring his magic, which has the effect of bringing to him every available mage in the town. Every one of them has grim, yet determined looks on their faces, as Hiruzen addresses them. Listen up everyone, tonight may very well be the final night Konoha has, however I do not want you to despair. We shall fight to our dying breath to make sure the innocent get to safety. Now all of you gather up the civilians and get them to safety. Do not under any circumstances come back here to fight the beast. Clan leaders, see to your families, that is more important than fighting a monster. The rest of you are with me. We'll show this beast why you don't mess with Konoha. They all roar in approval of this, as they break off into 3 groups, one to gather the civilians made of young mages like Kakashi, Obito, and Rin. A second made of the clan heads who head to their homes to gather their wives and children. The last group launches themselves off the top of Hiruzen's office heading right for the dragon, which has just landed in the center of town, crushing many shops and homes in the process. Sarutobi gathers his magic and slams his right hand on the ground calling out, "Monkey magic! Monkey King! Enma! Saru no Maho! Enku! Enma!" As a dark green magic seal appears, and out of the seal comes an old monkey whose body and tail is covered in white fur which protrude from his sleeves and pants. He has long unkempt white hair that reaches to his back and long sideburns and a goatee. He wears a black suit with mesh armor underneath, over which he wears a sleeveless kimono shirt with white fur trimmings, and markings reminiscent of tiger stripes on it which is held closed by a red sash. This is the king of monkeys summons Enma. The Monkey King looks around, quickly noticing the dragon, turns to his old friend and partner with a serious look. "Let me guess. Konoha is under attack by that dragon, and like an old fool you're going to meet it head on. I take it you summoned me to fight alongside you?" Sarutobi nods at this as he continues, "Fine, then if we die at least we die together. Transformation magic. Adamantine staff. Henshin Maho. Konganyoi." As a glowing yellow magic circle appears beneath him, and quickly he takes on the form of large, long black bow staff, with caps at each end, and is as hard as diamond. Hiruzen takes hold of his transformed partner before joining the others already fighting, and being beaten back by the dragon. As he gets within range of the enormous beast, he thrusts the staff forward, causing it to extend, and hits the beast square in the chest, which dents its scales in that area, as well as pushes it back so that it is now outside of the walls of Konoha. Bringing the staff back to regular length, he rushes outside the walls to continue the fight, with others following him. The dragon meanwhile is shocked that a human weapon was able to harm him, and even push him back, as no human-made weapon should be able to do that. What's more is he sensed both magic and life from the staff, which he quickly deduces means that the weapon must be one of those deplorable summon animals. Which only angers him more, as he is the great Bronton the Thunder Dragon, Sonda Ryu. And he will not be made a fool of by a pseudo-demon who lowers himself to working with filthy humans, as he releases another mighty roar and prepares to kill and eat all the humans nearing him. As Hiruzen leads his forces against the great dragon he can't help but to think to himself, if only Jiraiya and Tsunade were here, then we might actually have a decent chance of beating the beast. Jiraiya's collaborations with his toads as well as the acid of Tsunade's slugs would cause serious damage to it, and may even cause it to retreat. Alas, Jiraiya is off spying on dark guilds, and other countries, and Tsunade is Ishval knows where, probably some casino gambling her family's fortune away. He steals his nerves, choosing not to dwell on what-ifs, as he notices the dragon open its maw, and blue-colored lightning start gathering in its mouth, and he realizes what it's doing as he quickly yells out, "Breath attack! Scatter!" And he gives the order not a second too soon, as soon as the attack team scatters to the winds, Bronton release his Thunder Dragon's roar, Sonda Ryu no Hoko, launching a wide and enormous beam of blue lightning, which disintegrates everything in its path, even destroying part of the mountain behind the town where the faces of all Konoha's leaders are carved. Looking at the destruction caused by that one attack, all the mages are astonished and shocked. However, Hiruzen Sarutobi has an entirely different reaction. Upon seeing the damage done to his home, the place he grew up, where he learned to be a mage at the feet of Hashirama Senju, the man known as the god of wizards, and his brother Tobarama Senju, the old village leader, is enraged. Suddenly all the mages in the area are brought to their knees by the sheer force of the professor's magical power. The old man rushes Bronton with a speed a man of his age should not possess, his magical aura coming off his body in waves of green, his power enough to even gain the attention of the dragon. Before he raises the adamantine staff high into the air, elongating and slightly enlarging it, and brings it straight down on Bronton's scaled head with a resounding crack. The diamond-hard weapon having enough power and force to crack the scales on the head, drawing blood, as well as knocking the great beast flat to the ground on his face. Bronton lets out a slight groan of pain, not believing that the old human actually managed to bring him down and draw blood. However, that quickly turns to rage as he stands back to his full height. "Filthy human! How dare you draw the blood of the great Bronton? I'm going to eat you whole and then destroy your precious town," R-O-A-R-R-R-R-R-R-R. Hiruzen doesn't respond to this verbally, instead he makes seal with his left hand, causing a brown magic seal to appear on the ground between him and Bronten. Earth Magic. Earth Flow River. Suchi Maho. Doryu Taiga. As the ground turns to a river of mud and slides under the dragon's feet, causing him to lose his footing. Sarutobi changes the seal his hand is in and another brown magic seal appears in front of the old man, as the mud raises up and takes the shape of a dragon's head. Earth Magic. Earth Dragon Bullet. Suchi Maho. Doryuden. As the mud dragon opens its maw and fires off large, hard spheres of mud, before they reach Bronten, the old man changes his hand seal again and a red magic circle appears as he takes a breath and breathes out a red-hot flame. Fire Magic. Fire Dragon Bullet. Hai no Maho. Karyuden, lighting the mud bullets on fire and turning them to bullets of magma as the old man finishes off saying, Collaboration Magic. Lava Dragon Bullets. Koroborashan Maho. Yogan Ryuden. The projectiles of liquid hot rock hit Bronten along his left side, the heat such that it manages to melt many of his scales, and cause superficial burns on the skin underneath. However, the dragon's healing factor quickly takes care of the problem, and scales fix themselves as he turns and swipes at Sarutobi with his right hand. The old man manages to get out of the way, however his left side is nicked by part of one of the dragon's claws. Hiruzen yelps in pain when he lands, quickly grabbing his side. This causes Enma's eye and mouth to appear on the staff. Hiruzen, are you injured? The old man nods his head in answer. How bad is it? Sarutobi takes his hand from his side and looks down to see it completely covered in blood and winces. It looks pretty bad, old friend. But I can still fight. His attention is quickly brought back to the problem at hand, as the other mages, bolstered by his success, had begun attacking the great beast. However, no matter what spells they use, they can't harm Bronten. For their troubles they're being swatted around, and crushed like bugs by the dragon. He prepares to re-enter the fight, calling up his magic again. However, before he can do anything he sees a flash of yellow and hears a shout of, Energy Make. Big Ball Rasengan. Enerugi Maiku. Odama Rasengan, as a large ball of swirling blue magic energy crashes into Bronten's chest, sending him skidding back 30 feet and leaving a swirl-like bruise on his chest. That's when he sees the forms of Minato Dreyar and Kushina Uzumaki Dreyar standing there right in front of him, and in Kushina's arms as their one-year-old S-man turns to the elder mage with a serious look on his face which reminds him of his father, before he's addressed by the younger man. Sarutobi-sama, leave this to us. We have only one request of you, take our son to safety. We've contacted my father and he will meet you in the nearest town in Fury to hear. He is then handed the blonde-haired baby by Kushina. The old man is shocked by these actions, but quickly gets his wits back and tries to hand the child back to the redhead. You cannot be serious, Minato. Kushina, please take Naruto back, and the three of you get to safety. I'm old, and have lived a long and fruitful life. Besides, I'm going to die anyway. My injury is mortal. Take Naruto and go to Fairy Tail. I will hold back the beast with what strength I have left. Kushina shakes her head at this, as she places her hand on the old man's left side and it glows green, as he feels his wound stitched together slightly, before the light fades away. That's all I can do to help you, old man. I was never really good at healing, and only picked up a few things from Mother Porlyuzica. Any strenuous movement will cause it to open again. We need you to take Naruto and go, because if we run away now, when the people we've grown close to over the last 3 years need us most, then we would never be able to show our faces to Fairy Tail, or call ourselves wizard saints. Hiruzen is taken aback by the passion he sees in Kushina's eyes at that statement as he unconsciously holds Naruto tightly to himself. A loud roar brings all their attention back to the dragon, as Minato gives his wife a look, and instantly she knows what he's saying without words. She steps forward and extends her right hand as a glowing golden seal appears beneath Bronten, as she intones, Chain Magic. Holy Chains. Rensa Maho. Hori Chen, as multiple golden chains erupt from the seal and wrap around the dragon, before pulling tight and forcing him to the ground. Minato turns to the old man and his son, as he rubs the child's cheek with his finger, and then places a kiss down upon the babe's head. I hope that someday you can forgive us for not being there for you, Naruto. I have no doubt that your grandfather will raise you to the best of his abilities, and that you will grow up strong. You're going to be compared to your mother and I a lot as you grow as a mage, but don't ever let that bring you down. Use it as motivation to become stronger and to prove that you are not the son of Minato Dreyar and Kushina Uzumaki Dreyar, but that you are Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar and you are your own man, as that is what I did to step out of the shadow of my own father. Sarutobi-sama, please take good care of my boy, make sure he arrives safely to my father's hands. The old man nods at this, as the reed head comes back over, and the blonde uses Hiraishin to flash in front of Bronton and summons a dull green magic seal, sending out a blast of wind magic, which cuts into the beast's face as it continues to try to break the chains. Kushina does similar to her husband, as she moves aside the hair on Naruto's forehead, but she kisses his whiskered cheeks and smiles down at him with only the affection a mother could have. My precious little Naru-chan. You'll never know just how much your father and I love you, and you may hate us for a time, but when you have children you'll understand our decision. All I want you to do is to eat right, grow tall like your daddy, make sure you study your magic real good, and train as hard as you can. When you're old enough, find a girl like your mommy, fall in love, and have lots of children. Above all else, live your life to the fullest every day, and always follow your ideas of wrong and right, no matter what anyone may say. We love you, Naruto. She gives him one final kiss, then nods to Sarutobi to let him know to take him away now. The old man looks sadly at the young mother, but does as asked. However, before he leaves he has one more thing to say. Kushina, it has been an honor and a privilege to have you and Minato in Konoha, and to get to know you both. I promise you that I will do my best to make sure Naruto gets to Maki. But do this old man one favor. Try to come out of this confrontation alive. I do not want Naruto to be an orphan, and I do not wish Maki to feel the loss of a son and daughter. Farewell, and may Ishval guide your hands. With that he runs off with the youngest Dreyar in his arms, heading for the nearest town to the border in fury. Kushina turns back to the dragon as her magic skyrockets and starts coming off her in waves of dark red, and her hair floats in the air becoming like 9 red tails. A red magic circle appears as she calls out, Blades Magic. Ascalon. Yeba Maho. Asukaran. As she summons the legendary dragon-slaying blade Ascalon, which as soon as she takes it in her hand glows with magic as she rushes Bronton. The battle would rage on for many hours, with the 2 young wizard saints scoring many wounds upon the Thunder Dragon. However, Bronton would also get wounds on the 2 humans. In the end, Minato and Kushina would finally figure out a way to end the dragon and keep their lives, though it would take most of the magic they had left. Together the husband and wife team used a spell called Seal Magic. Self-destruction spell. Shiru Maho. Jiritsu Hokai Mahojin, and placed it upon Bronton. The self-destruction seal is one that uses the magic of who or what it is applied to defuel itself, and destroys that person or object and an area around it completely. The seal worked, and Bronton the Thunder Dragon was killed, and everything in a 10-mile radius was destroyed, including the outer edge of Konoha. Minato, using the last of his magic, managed to use Hiraishin to take Kushina and himself to safety, concentrating on the marker he had left in his mother's treehouse in the forests of Magnolia Town. It was a shock to poor Lyuzuka to see the telltale yellow flash of her only child's technique, but even more so to see her son and daughter-in-law appear unconscious and heavily injured. Poor Lyuzuka quickly went to work to save their lives, and by the grace of the gods of magic, she managed to do it. However, though she patched up her son and his wife, they slipped into comas, and she quickly called Makarov to come to her home. However, she was told by the guild's ace and Minato's best friend Gildarts Clive that the old master had gone to get their grandson, so she told the man to inform Makarov to come to her house as soon as he returned. However, for Makarov Dreyar, he would believe his son and daughter-in-law dead, and would feel the loss much more deeply, as in his mind he not only would lose his youngest son and daughter-in-law, but also his grandson. Makarov would arrive in the little Fury village nearest to the border with Bosco, within hours of being alerted by his son of his plans. He would wait for over 2 days for Hiruzen to arrive with his youngest grandson, but the man would never arrive. So the 5th strongest wizard saint would go to look for his old friend, hoping that he only got held up by his old age and not something untoward. He would find the man a day later, 150 miles outside of Konoha, and around 5 miles from the village they were to meet. However, he would find him dead, with the bodies of many cultists laying around him. Taking in the scene, he can already tell what happened. During the trip to bring Naruto to Makarov, Sarutobi was stopped by the cultists, who had most likely felt the great magical power within Naruto and wanted the child. The man obviously refused and a fight broke out. Hiruzen fought with all his might. Even though he was holding onto Naruto, he managed to take out a great number of them. His downfall came when his earlier wound from fighting Bronton that was partially healed by Kushina had reopened and he started to bleed heavily. The cultists had started to overwhelm him, however before they could kill him and take the child, a third party had arrived, and with powerful magic, killed all the cultists. Makarov came to the conclusion that Hiruzen must have felt goodness in the third party and give person, and that man or woman had then left with the 1-year-old to gods know where. Falling to his knees, the Titan of Fairy Tail wept for the loss of yet another precious person, his friend Hiruzen Sarutobi, and wept for his missing grandson. However, he quickly pulled himself together, realizing that there was hope that Naruto was still alive, and that someday he would come to Fairy Tail and return to the only family he had left. After that he destroyed the bodies of the cultists with fire magic and then gave his old friend a proper burial with help from his Titan magic. Makarov then turned and headed for home, back to Magnolia Town, and back to Fairy Tail, with thoughts of find and informing Tsunade and Jiraiya that their teacher, their surrogate father figure was dead. However, what Makarov could never imagine is that the third party who saved Sarutobi and took Naruto away was no mere mortal wizard. No, the person who took the youngest Dreyar was a god, nor could he imagine that he would find his son and daughter-in-law alive but in comas that they would not awaken from for 10 years. Mountains of Fury, October 14, X 764. In one of the mountain ranges of Fury, the one nearest to Clover Town, at the highest peak we find a single wooden house, which seems to be built into the mountainside. Inside the house can be seen only 2 occupants. The first is a man. He is tall, standing at nearly 6 feet 8, and weighing 300 pounds, his body covered in large muscles. He has short, messy gray hair, with the fringes colored white, dark blue, and dark yellow. His eyes are orange. He is dressed in a loose tunic-like top, that has the kanji for Storm God on the back, dark pants, and boots. The second occupant is easily recognizable by its little head of blonde hair as Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar. This man is Zarok the Storm God. Zarok looks down at the baby in his arms and thinks about how he came to have the little one. It was a normal day for the Storm God. He was minding his own business, having some fun making storms in Bosco, when he felt a spike in magical energy, one large enough that it caught his attention, and so being naturally curious, he decided to check out the source. When he reached the source of the magic he found that it had come from an elderly man, probably in his 60s. However, what really got his attention were all the men in purple attacking the old guy, whom he knew to be cultists of the mad wizard Zarif. While he attempted to protect a child, he had to give the old man credit for being able to take on so many enemies at once. However, he became enraged when he saw that the man was bleeding heavily from his side, and the other men were trying to get at the child. Deciding he had seen enough, Zarok had released his magical power, which froze everyone in the clearing in their tracks, and stepped out of the shadows. He didn't say a word, he only proceeded to swiftly kill the cultists, using his mastery of the elements of the storm, those being wind, water, and lightning. After he finished the last cultist he spoke with the old man, and learned his name was Hiruzen Sarutobi, and that the child's name was Naruto Dreyar. Sarutobi told him that he was from the town of Konoha, which had recently come under attack by the dragon Bronton, whom Zarok knew as he'd kicked the lizard's ass a few times in the past. He said that the boy's parents sacrificed themselves to stop the beast and tasked him with getting their son to his grandfather, and that what he was on his way to do when the cultist attacked him for Naruto. Zarok proceeded to feel out for the child's magical container, and what he felt when he did blew him away, for the child had a great deal of magical power that would no doubt increase as he got older and would make him one of the most powerful wizards to live. So he quickly made a decision. He told the man that he would like to take the boy with him to his home and train him and teach him God Slayer magic, Metsujin Maho. When the man voiced objections to this, he waylaid his fears by telling him that after the boy's 13th birthday he would send him straight to his grandfather. All Sarutobi had to do is tell him who that was and where he was located. The old wizard, knowing from experience how powerful a God Slayer could be, due to his teacher Hashirama Senju having been one for the element of wood, agreed to the request. Being informed that the boy's grandfather was named Makarov Dreyar, and that he was the guild master of the Fairy Tail Guild in Magnolia Town, Zarok took baby Naruto from Sarutobi. Before he left he made sure the man was comfortable for his final hours in this world. and then using his power over wind he flew back towards his home with the babe tucked in his arms. Now he looks down at the sleeping child, and can't help but to wonder how the next 12 to 13 years are going to go. However, he's sure that his new adopted son, student, will blast through all his expectations and be the first ever to learn and master all 3 elements of the storm and then storm god slayer magic. Arashi no Metsujin Maho itself. So as he lays the child in his crib then goes into a meditative trance, he looks forward to the future with a smile on his face. It's been nearly 7 years since that faithful day when the town of Konoha was attacked by the Thunder Dragon Bronton, and many brave mages gave their lives to fight him. 7 years since Minato Drayar and Kushina Uzumaki Drayar defeated him with a powerful seal and managed to escape with their lives but slip into comas. 7 years since Zarok the Storm God took young Naruto Uzumaki Drayar, who prefers to just go by Naruto Drayar, in and adopted him as his son. Naruto is now almost 8 years old, and is tall for his age, standing at 4 feet 5 and weighing 60 pounds. Naruto is almost a spitting image of his father, with spiky blonde hair minus the jaw-length bangs and sparkling blue eyes, but with his mother's eye shape, and slightly tan skin tone. Also unlike his father, he has 3 whisker-like birthmarks on both his cheeks. Also unlike his father, he's slightly stocky, an affect of the training Zarok has put him through, for as the man says, a storm is both fast and powerful. Naruto's life with Zarok has been good thus far. When he turned 2, the god began to teach him how to read and write, something he picked up pretty quickly, proving to be nearly as smart as his birth father. At 4 he began to teach the boy about the history of the world and of magic, also that was the year he began Naruto's physical training. At 5 he began the boy's magical training, and using a special item only available to gods had his magical affinities tested, and found he had high affinities to lightning. Kaminari ke Kakushu Maho. Wind. K's Maho. Water. Mizu ke Kakushu Maho. And Seal, Shiru Maho. Magics. As well as low affinities to light. Hikari no Maho. Rune. Rune Maho. Chain. Rensa Maho. And Requip magics, Konso Maho. This discovery filled the god with joy, as it meant that the boy would take not only all the individual elements of the storm but also to his storm god slayer magic, Arashi no Metsujin Maho. He started off his magical training by teaching him lightning god slayer, Kaminari no Metsujin Maho, wind god slayer, Fujin no Metsujin Maho, and water god slayer, Sujin no Metsujin Maho. Magics. However, when he started his training with the first, he told Naruto that his individual god slayer magics, Metsujin Maho, would never be as powerful as god slayers who specialize in only those elements, but would still be stronger than dragon slayers of those elements. First he taught Naruto lightning god slayer magic, which the little blonde picked up quite quickly and easily, learning and getting down most of the spells by the time he turned 6. At 6 is when he started to learn wind god slayer magic. This one was a bit harder to learn as wind and lightning are opposing elements, however he picked it up and learned nearly all the spells by his 7th birthday. At 7 is when his training in water god slayer magic began, and is that training that is still going on now. For this training they Moin peak home to a valley nearby where there was a river, so that the boy could practice his new spells, without flooding their home. Naruto can be seen in his fighting stance. He is wearing a loose dark orange shirt, black shorts, and combat boots. Taking deep breaths he prepares to go through all the water god slayer spells that he's learned thus far, with Zarok acting as his sparring partner. The little blonde calls up his magic and suddenly explodes into action, rushing at his teacher, father, with the speed of a boy twice his age. He his fist back as a dark blue magic circle appears in front of him. He then brings his fist forward with a call of Water God's Ocean Fist. Sujin no Oshan Tekken. As a large fist of black water come out of the seal and heads straight for Zarok. However, the god is prepared for this as he his fist back and then brings it forward and directly hits the fist of water, dispersing it. When he looks forward for Naruto, the boy is missing. However, he quickly senses him above him, as the boy is coming down at him with his right foot encased in black water. The boy goes for a falling axe kick while intoning Water God's Wave Kick. Sujin no Nami Kiku. As he brings his water-encased foot down upon the god's left forearm. However, the man doesn't even budge an inch and instead grabs him by that foot and throws him away. Naruto lands on his feet before he turns and summons a magic seal to his hand. and in an instant water appears forming into a black liquid trident. As he rushes the god again, naming his newest attack. Water God's Trident. Sujin no Toridento. As he attempts to stab the large man with it. However, Zarok dodges all his strikes, and even kicks him in the stomach, sending him flying back into the river. But before he hits the river, he tosses the trident at the god, who just sidesteps it. The blonde quickly surfaces from the water of the river, hops out, and decides to finish the spar with his last spell, the first God Slayer spell he's learned for each element. He takes a deep breath, drawing in all water in the area to his mouth, before a large magic seal appears in front of him and he thunders out, Water God's Bellow. Sujin no Dogo, as he releases a massive amount of black water, in the form of a crushing wave, which washes away all in its path, felling trees and crushing rocks. However, as it reaches Zarok, the man opens his mouth and swallows the entire wave. The god pats his belly, as he nods his head in approval. He looks at Naruto to find the blonde flat on his back, sweat pouring down his body, and breathing heavy, exhausted magically. He walks up the boy to hear him complaining about slave-driving gods and laughs, ha 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 ha. Well Naruto, you've done well thus far, though you've only learned 4 Water God Slayer spells, you've trained them to an acceptable level. Next week I'll start you on the next few spells. In the meantime, continue training as you have been, and don't think I haven't noticed you practicing with the regular versions of the elements. Keep up the good work. As he puts out his hand for the boy to take, the blonde smiles at the god for his praise and takes the offered hand. Thanks Zarok Tusan. I do my best, so when I finally leave you I'll be strong enough to handle anything. But I've been meaning to ask you if you have any books on seal and rune magic? Zarok s his head at this, as he places his hand to his chin in thought. He knows he has books on many types of magic because when you live for eternity there's not much to do besides collect knowledge, but he tries to recall if he has books on those 2 magics. After a few moments to sort through his memories, he smiles and gives his adopted son an answer. Yeah, I have a lot of books on seal and rune magics. In fact, the books I have were written by the wizards who created those 2 magics. When we return to the peak I'll give them to you and you can learn those magics on your own time. Now how about you go get cleaned up and changed, and then we'll eat lunch and do your history lessons. I think you're going to like today's lesson as it's on guilds. The blonde whoops in joy at this news and quickly runs off to wash up, causing the god to laugh at his exuberance. He enters the cave they're currently staying in, and makes them a nutritious lunch. A few minuets later the blonde walks in, now wearing a red shirt with a black lightning bolt on the front, dark wave pattern on the hem, and a tornado on the back, with dark pants, and his usual boots. After lunch, Zarok sits the boy down and begins to tell him the history of all the guilds in Fury. However, when he gets to Fairy Tail he turns slightly somber, and when asked what is the matter by Naruto, the god chooses to finally tell him the truth. He tells him that the current master of Fairy Tail is his grandfather, and that his parents had originally wanted him to be raised by the man. However, he took him in when the man transporting him was attacked. At first the child was upset at this, yelling about how he'd effectively kidnapped him from his family. But after realizing that the god had raised him with love and compassion, and had even taught him a powerful form of magic, he settled down and said it was okay. Then he asked about his parents and grandfather, and the man told him that his grandfather's name is Makarov Dreyar, and is the source of his last name, and is considered the 5th strongest member of the 10 wizard saints. He tells him that what he knew of Makarov was that he was called the Titan of Fairy Tail and is the 3rd master of the guild. He said that from what information he gathered on the boy's parents, they too were wizard saints and were named Minato Dreyar, the youngest son of Makarov, and Kushina Uzumaki Dreyar, and that they had both been masters of seal magic. But says his father was a master of lightning and wind magics, while his mother was a master of chain magic, Rensa Maho, and blades magic, Yeba Maho. Naruto made a vow that day. He vowed that he would master all his god slayer magics as well as becoming at least an expert in seal and rune magics by the time he leaves Zarok. He also decided that day to take up swordsmanship in honor of his mother. For the next year, he worked his butt off to learn all the water god slayer magic and did it. He also made great headway with the regular elemental spells, and learned re-equip magic so that he could summon and put away his wooden training sword whenever he wanted. Mountains of Fury near Clover Town, August 21st, X 772. Naruto age 8 nearing 9. Naruto, now 8, and Zarok arrive back to their home at the peak of the mountain. Naruto is tired and drenched in water and sweat, His clothes are torn and singed, and his hair is messier than usual. The reason for this is because of the final test that he just underwent for his individual God Slayer magics. He had to prove that he had mastered all the techniques to a good enough level for the Storm God, and he passed with flying colors, though he's a little worse for wear from it. Now he's heading for his room, which he has missed for the last year and a half, to get a shower and change into some pajamas. All he wants to do is eat dinner, and then hit the sack. However, he feels Zarok's hand on his shoulder and turns to the man with a questioning look. The god smiles at the blonde. "You did well today, Naruto. I'm proud of the progress you've made the last almost 4 years. I'll get you those books I promised you on seal and rune magic, and you can get started on reading and learning them tomorrow. This next week is free. But next week you need to steel your resolve, because that is when we begin your Storm God Slayer magic. Arashi no Metsujin Maho, training. If you can learn it, you will be the first ever Storm God Slayer in recorded history. I have faith in you, kid." With that, he walks off towards his library, leaving a shocked yet excited Naruto in his wake. True to his word, as soon as the boy came out of his bathroom, clean and dressed in his PJs, he found the 2 books on his bedside table. So taking the book on Seal Magic D began to read, and that is how Zarok found him when he came to tell him dinner was ready. After eating a hearty meal of rice, barbecue beef, and vegetables, Naruto returned to his room and started reading the rune magic book, and that's how he fell asleep. For the whole week the blonde would do his physical training in the morning, and spend the afternoon delving into seal and rune magic, and at night he would meditate and prepare his mind for the rigors of the training to come. Within the week, Naruto could say he was a novice in the 2 new magics he'd been studying, and he was ready to learn Storm God Slayer magic. August 28th of X772 finds the blonde God Slayer standing in the training grounds within the mountain peak. If you look closely at him, you can see his body vibrating with excitement. Across from him stands his adopted father and teacher, the Storm God Zarok. Zarok looks at the boy with slight pride, thinking of how strong he already is, and knowing how much stronger he's about to become. He clears his throat to get Naruto's attention. "Alright, Naruto. Today begins your training in my magic, Storm God Slayer magic. Now, in order to properly use Storm God Slayer magic, you'll need to combine the 3 other God Slayer magics together. The storm is the unmatched speed of lightning, the deadly force of wind, and the crushing power of water, all rolled into a single destructive force." Naruto stares at Zarok in awe at the god's words, before the gray-haired man turns around showing his back and continues. "Now the first spell you're going to learn is the first spell you learned for each of the individual elements, that being the Storm God's Bellow. Now watch carefully." Zarok calls up his magic energy, the force of it enough to crack the ground and bring the blonde to his knees. The god takes a deep breath, gathering lightning, air, and water to his mouth, as a large gray magic seal appears in front of him, and he intones, "Storm God's Bellow." Arashi no Dogo, as he releases an enormous swirling vortex of black water and wind with black lightning in the center. The attack hits a boulder and completely destroys it, and continues on through the mountain wall behind it, punching a huge hole in mountain, as it exits to the outside and continues on, punching through the next peak over, before finally dying out. Naruto stares in complete awe of the power of just a single Storm God Slayer spell. The blonde can't help but to think of how badass he's going to be when he gets that spell, and every other Storm God Slayer magic spell down. Meanwhile, Zarok looks at the damage he caused and chuckles while scratching the back of his head. "Oops, I think I put a little too much power behind that one. It was only supposed to obliterate the boulder. Oh well, what do I care, I'm a freaking god, that will just make the mortals respect my power more." Naruto's sweat drops at his adoptive father's antics, however he quickly shakes that off, and begins to try to use the Storm God's Bellow, while Zarok observes. The whole day the blonde tries and tries, but has no success, and the god tells him not to be discouraged as it will take time to get the perfect balance between the 3 elements. That is how Naruto's training in Storm God Slayer magic went for the rest of X772. On his 9th birthday he received a gift of a magic pen to use when writing his seal and rune magics. Finally, near the end of that year, on December 25th, X772, the blonde finally accomplished what he'd worked months for. Standing in the training ground, he takes a huge breath, drawing in lightning, water, and wind. A gray magic seal appears in front of him as he yells out, "Storm God's Bellow," and releases a vortex of black wind and water. However, his black lightning isn't inside the vortex, it's circling around the outside of it. Naruto's bellow is 1/3 the size of Xerox, but when it hits the target boulder it has enough power to grind it to dust. The blonde jumps up and whoops in joy at finally managing to do his first Storm God Slayer spell. Xerox looks on in approval and great pride, for he now knows he was right, that the little blonde will be great, and has the potential to master his magic. The gray-haired god claps his hands. Very good, Naruto, very good indeed. The bellow, one of the hardest spells to learn. It's why I've always had you learn it first when starting each element. The physical spells will be a bit easier but still very hard, and the God Slayer secret arts, Metsujin Ogi, will be the hardest to learn. Naruto nods his head at this, knowing that he's right as he continues, but with determination and heart, you will master everything I've got left to teach you. Also, starting this coming year I'm going to allow you to start going into Clover Town, so that you can get used to human interaction, and maybe find some friends your age. Even I know it's unhealthy for you to constantly be up here in the mountains with me. The blonde nods in agreement to this, and is secretly excited to get the chance to meet and befriend other children his age. That night, after training all day, and only slightly increasing the power of his new bellow, the two have a dinner of fish, rice, and vegetables before heading to bed. East Forest of Magnolia Town, Poor Lyuzuka's treehouse. May 12th. X773. We find the elderly pink-haired healer going about her daily routine of sweeping up her house. For the past 9 years she has had 2 long-term patients, her son Minato Drayar and his wife Kushina Uzumaki Drayar, and for all the time she's never been able to figure out why they slipped into the comas they have been in all this time. Over the last 9 years her former teammate and lover, father to Minato, Makarov, has come to visit the two once a week to check on their condition, and each time she's told him the same thing, that there has been no change. 9 years ago, when Fairy Tail's third master had returned from retrieving their grandson Naruto, empty-handed, she had been angry and asked him where the babe was. When he told her that Hiruzen had died protecting Naruto and given him to someone who had helped them, she beat him over the head and called him an old fool before tossing him out of her house. It had taken her an entire week to cool down and permit the old man back into her abode. After having a conversation about it, she realized that all she could do was hope that Naruto grew up well cared for and happy, and that eventually he'd make his way to Fairy Tail or one of the other guilds. They then discussed what to do about Minato and Kushina, and Makarov said that they would leave their status a mystery, but act as if they had perished at Konoha. So it came to be that the only people who knew the truth about the two now former wizard saints were herself, Makarov, and Gildarts, the last one because he was Minato's best friend and the ace of the guild. They decided to keep it secret from even Ivan, as Makarov had noticed a certain glee in the man's eyes when he'd told him his little brother and sister-in-law were dead. So for the last 9 years she has been caring for her baby boys similarly to the way she did when he was very little, as well as her daughter-in-law, seeing to their cleanliness, feeding them to keep their strength up, and making sure that their bladders and bowels were properly emptied every day, the last via a spell. Now in all that time neither one has made a sound or even a twitch. However, today she's going to be in for a shock. As poor Lyuzuka goes about cleaning the room that the two long-term patients are in, suddenly her ears pick up a sound coming from both their beds, a sound that is new. That sound is groaning. She places down her broom and goes over to them to check their vitals. What she finds is that they're improving rapidly, and soon enough she notices the two begin to twitch different parts of their bodies. For Minato it's his right hand fingers, for Kushina her left foot. Within 2 hours of the start of their movements, the two do another remarkable thing. They open their eyes. It's slow at first, and they quickly shut them again to keep out the bright light. Only they fully open their blue and violet eyes respectively and begin to take a look around. The pink-haired woman comes up to her son's bedside and smiles down at him with motherly affection, caressing his cheek. "Welcome back to the world of the living, Minato-chan. We have missed you dearly, my sweet boy." Upon seeing the face of his mother, the blonde smiles back at her and responds, "Hey Ka-chan. I guess my plan worked after all, and I was able to teleport Kushi-chan and myself to your house for treatment." The pink-haired healer nods at this, before taking her hand away from her boy's face, and going over to Kushina's bed to scan her over, while the redhead just smiles at her. "Thank you, poor Lyuzuka Ka-chan, for healing Min-kun and I, but I have to know. How is Naru-chan? How is my baby?" This causes poor Lyuzuka to cringe slightly, which isn't missed by either younger mage. However, it's Minato who decides to voice the question. "Ka-san, what's wrong? Did something happen to Naruto? Where is our son?" What is going on with my voice? Why'd I sound older? This causes both women to chuckle at him. As the redhead looks at her husband's face and notices that it does seem a bit older, then she remembers and wonders why. The pink-haired woman sighs and rubs her temples before deciding to get right down to business. I'll answer your questions in reverse order. First off, why you sound older is because you are older, Minato-chan. The year is X773. You two have been in comas since just after you flashed here on October 13th, X764. This statement leaves the two former wizard saints in complete shock. However, what she has to say next will cause their shock to be replaced by something else. As for where Naru-chan is, I don't know. Makarov went to meet Hiruzen like you asked him to, but the man never showed. When Makarov went to find the man, he found him dead, surrounded by the bodies of several cultists and Naruto missing. He sent guildarts out to find the babe as soon as he returned to the guild, but after 2 months of searching, guildarts found nothing, not even a trace of Naruto. This news fills the two with heartbreak, intense sadness, and in the case of Minato, great rage. However, before the blonde can express his rage by releasing his magic, and to stop Kushina's now forming tears, poor Lyuzuka continues. However, don't despair, there is an upside to this. The old fool said that he sensed the presence of a third party in the area, and that third party was the one responsible for the deaths of the cultists. It looked like he or she helped Hiruzen, who was dying from an earlier wound, and in thanks, and trusting the person, Hiruzen handed Naru-chan to that person, and they are the ones who have him. Kushina, however, gets angry at that. How is that an upside? Some stranger has had my baby for the last 9 years. He probably doesn't even know who he is. He might have a new name. Hell, the person who raised him may have raised him to be a psychopathic murderer. How is that an upside? Tell me. However, before the pink-haired woman can answer, a voice comes from behind her. It's an upside because Hiruzen would not have trusted Naruto-chan to someone evil. It is an upside because God's willing, the boy will come and join Fairy Tail in the next couple of years. And if not Fairy Tail, then another guild that we are friendly with. That is the upside, Kushina-chan, that we will see our youngest Drayar again. They all turn to see Makarov standing in the doorway, and the man has a look of absolute faith in his eyes that his words are true. He walks into the room, using his Titan magic, Giayanto Maho, to become slightly larger, about 6 feet tall, as he walks over to his son's bed and wraps him in a strong hug, patting the man's back. It's so good to have you back, my boy. You have been sorely missed, not just by this old man, but by the entire guild, especially guildarts. In fact, you missed his wedding and his wife leaving him. The blonde hugs his now larger father back, smiling at the old man. Thank you too, San. It's good to be back. I can't believe that we've missed so much time and so many events. But can you be certain that my son will find us? Please be honest with me. You owe me that much, old man. The older man nods his head seriously in response, and seeing no lie in his eyes, Minato nods in acceptance before letting the subject drop. Makarov then goes over to Kushina's bed and gives her a gentler hug than his son, and a kiss on the forehead. It is also good to have you back, my daughter. You will be a shining light for all the younger females at the guild. Someone for them to look up to. Welcome back. The redhead smiles with tears in her eyes as she buries her face in her surrogate father's chest and hugs him tightly. They are all brought back to the here and now as poor Lyuzuka clears her throat, gaining all their attention. While it's all well and good that they are awake again, there are still many checkups to be made. They will need rehabilitation for using their magic, and when they get that back down, then they will have to retrain up their spells and fighting styles before I even consider giving them the all clear to return to active duty. As she ends this statement with piercing glares to all 3 of the others in the room. Minato and Kushina quickly nod their heads to the woman's words, while Makarov shrinks back to his original size and chuckles. A slave driver as always, my dear. You'll never change, poor Lyuzuka-chan. All he gets for this comment is a whack over the head with a broom and a look from said pink-haired healer that screams, "Leave now or get hurt." So he does the smart thing and hightails it out of there and back to the guild. The blonde and redhead laugh at the antics of the first's parents, and separately think to themselves that some things never change. Then their thoughts turn to the missing 9 years of their lives, and realizing that they now have to get used to being 34 years old, and the fact that their only child is missing. Lastly, their thoughts turn to the future, and both make a silent vow that when they are finally combat ready again, they will leave and search for their Naru-chan, and they won't stop until they find him. This is how the world and fairy tale regained two former wizard saints. It would take a full year for the two to get back into tip-top fighting shape, before poor Lyuzica would begrudgingly agree to allow them back into active service. When they returned to Fairy Tale, they would be welcomed with open arms by everyone, especially Gildarts, who was glad to have his best friend back. However, one man would not welcome them back, and that man was Ivan, who seethed at the fact that he was lied to about his brother's demise, and plot how to get even. However, the two would not stay long, as a week after returning they would set off on their journey to find their son. Clover Town, October 8th, X773. Today we find our blonde god slayer doing what he's been doing every day for the last 10 months, walking down the streets of Clover Town. He is making his way to a little shop called Ichiraku Ramen. It is a place he first discovered on his first trip into Clover Town in January. After shopping for new clothes, he was hungry. One of the other shoppers in the clothing store was a girl about 5 years older than himself, so around 14 or 15 years old. The girl's name was Ayame Ichiraku, and she said she and her father ran the best ramen restaurant in all of Fury, so never having had ramen before and being hungry, Naruto followed her to her family's shop, and boy was he glad he did now. The first time he tasted the delicious ramen made by Ayame's father Tucci, he instantly fell in love with the stuff and has been getting multiple bowls of it once every month. Ayame turned out to be Naruto's first ever friend as well. Knowing Ayame has led the blonde to meeting and getting to know other children his age. Among those children he's met and befriended are Shikamaru Nara, who is tall for his age and kind of skinny, also very smart but lazy. Shoji Akamichi, who is chubby and average height for a 10-year-old, D can always be found with a bag of chips in his hand. However, he hasn't only made friends with boys, he also has two more female friends. First is Ino Yamanaka, who has platinum blonde hair. Naruto would say that she's very pretty for a 10-year-old girl. Ino is your typical girly girl. She's also a gossip queen. Her mother owns a flower shop in Clover Town. Second is Sakura Haruno, who is a pink-haired girl. Her family owns the clothing shop he bought his clothes in. Sakura is a very intelligent but very shy girl. She used to be very self-conscious about her forehead because she was bullied for it, until Naruto saw and sent the bullies packing. Since then, Sakura has started to open up more. Over the months, Naruto has hung out with and gotten to know his friends very well. He's found out that Shikamaru, Ino, and Shoji all come from mage families and are mages in training themselves, while Sakura, like her parents, is a regular civilian. He told them that he was a mage as well, specializing in lightning, wind, and water magic. The only problem is that none of his friends know who he really is. The reason for this is because the first time he left to come to Clover Town, Zarok told him to use transformation magic to change his hair and eye color, as well as cover up his whisker marks. When asked why, the god merely said that there were people in Clover Town who would link him to his biological father and report seeing him to his grandfather, and they don't want that yet. The blonde agreed and did as told, changing his hair color to black, and his eyes to brown, while getting rid of his whisker marks. He even went so far as to concoct a fake name for himself, Arashi Namikaze. So that is how his friends and their parents know him, as Arashi Namikaze. He feels really bad about lying to them, but until his training with Zarok is complete he can't have his grandfather finding him and taking him to Fairy Tale. He is drawn from his thoughts as he finally reaches Ichiraku Ramen. He enters the shop with a smile on his face. Ayame Nichan, Tucci Ojisan, your favorite customer has arrived. The ramen chef and his daughter smile brightly at the almost 10-year-old's exuberance, as he takes his usual seat at the counter and the brown-haired 15-year-old comes over to him. Hello Arashi-kun, how's my ototo today? The currently black-haired boy smiles at her brightly. I'm alright Ayame, nay, though I'm a little sore. Zartu-san is a slave driver when it comes to training. Anyway, I'll take my usual. The brown-haired teen giggles at the boy's antics, but nods her head. Alright then. 2-san 5 bowls of miso ramen to start. Her father turns to her slightly in response, coming right up. A few minuets later Ayame places the first bowl in front of the boy and he digs in. Bowl after bowl of delicious noodles are placed before him and he devours them all. In the end he has a stack of bowls next to him numbering 15, as he releases a large belch and pats his belly. Excuse me. Ah, that hit the spot. Great ramen as always Ojisan. He places the jewels for the meal down on the counter. However, before he can hop down and go to walk out, Ayame hands the money back to him. No, you're not paying today. The food is on the house this time, Arashi Ototo. The boy is shocked by this but smiles gratefully. Thank you. Well, I'll see you later, Ayame-ne. I'm going to go hang out with the guys. With that he walks out, not seeing the brown-haired teen shake her head and laugh at her little brother's actions. For the rest of the day he hangs out with Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, and Sakura, playing chess with Shikamaru and actually giving him a challenge. He spars with Choji to give him help in using his family's magic. He then lets Sakura and Ino drag him around town to a bunch of stores, before heading to the Yamanaka flower shop and using his water magic to water all the flowers and other assorted plants. However, throughout the day he receives gifts from his friends and their parents, much to his surprise. From Shikamaru and his parents he gets different strategy games. From Choji and his parents he receives recipes for food that is high in protein and good for helping to quickly replenish magic energy. From Ino and Sakura he actually receives 2 gifts. The first is a kiss on the cheek from each of them. The second gift from Ino is a book on meditation techniques, and a bonsai tree from Mrs. Yamanaka. The second gift from Sakura and her parents is an item that will forever be special to him. They give him a gray coat with black fur around the collar, which goes down to the back of his knees. The coat has the symbols for the 3 elements he uses on the back, those being a lightning bolt, a wave, and 3 interconnecting swirls representing wind, and they are in a triangle formation. When he finally asks Mebuki Haruno why everyone has given him these gifts, the answer he gets is unexpected. Everyone has given you all these gifts because your birthday is in 2 days and we know that you won't be around for us to celebrate it with you. So we all got together and decided to give you your gifts early, and we hope that you enjoy all of them. Hopefully next year we'll be able to throw you a big birthday party, Arashi-kun, to let you know how special you are to not only our children, but to us as well. The 10-year-old is stunned speechless at this, and can only nod his head and smile in gratitude. Soon enough he leaves Clover Town and heads back to the peak, where he shows off all his gifts to Zarok, especially his new coat. The god smiles at seeing how happy the blonde is, and tells him it's a great coat, but that he may want to keep it in his requip space when they train. 2 days later Naruto turns 10 and Zarok give him his gift. He begins his training in the God Slayer secret arts of lightning, water, and wind. The next nearly 4 years would be difficult on the blonde, but he would persevere and learn every single Storm God Slayer spell and God Slayer secret art spell that Zarok had to teach. He would also come very far in seal and rune magic, becoming an adept by his 13th birthday. In all that time, however, it would be his friendships with those in Clover Town that would see him through all his harsh training, and when the day came for Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar to make his reappearance to the world, Earth-Land wouldn't know what hit them. We find our blonde god Slayer standing at the base of the mountain he's called home since he was a year old. Over the years Naruto has changed slightly, nearing 14 he's tall for his age, standing at 5 feet 7 and weighing 115 pounds. His hair is still spiky and blonde, but he no longer resembles his father as he's cut his hair short. Hairstyle from chapter 700. His eyes are still the same though, he is now wearing a black muscle shirt with a dark orange vest over that, gray slacks with multiple pockets, black combat boots, and over all of that is a larger version of the jacket he got from the Harunos at 10. Standing next to the blonde is his adoptive father and teacher, Zarok the Storm God, Arashi Kami, who can only look on the teen with great pride. In the 13 years that he has had Naruto under his care, he has watched him grow from an energetic and curious child, into a powerful, intelligent, and amazing mage. He's taken all the god's hardest training and lessons and has never given up. All this makes him proud to call the blonde his son and the Storm God Slayer. Arashi no Metsujin. The gray-haired god turns to the blonde, patting his shoulder to get his attention. Well, this is it, kid. The last 13 years have been fun, but it's time for us to part ways. I have nothing more to teach you and you've exceeded my expectations in every way. I want you to know that no matter who you came from, I am damn proud to call you not only the Storm God Slayer but my son. Naruto smiles proudly at this, as he shocks the big god by hugging him. Thank you Zarok Tusan, that means so much coming from you. I've had a lot of fun growing up with you, and all the training you gave me really pushed me to my limits and beyond, but if I learned one thing it's to keep moving forward, and to fight till my last breath, and when I make a promise to always keep it. You've given me the philosophy that I'll live by for the rest of my life. I'll miss you, but it is time for me to rejoin my family. Zarok pulls away and ruffles his hair one last time, before he vanishes in the wind. Naruto smiles lightly before making his way down to Clover Town to make his grand debut, at least to the rest of the world. However, he made his debut as himself to his friends and their families last year. Boy, was that a bit of a hassle. The kids felt betrayed by his pretending to be Arashi Namikaze, while the adults wanted to go out and inform his grandfather right away. However, he managed to smooth things over, telling Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, and Sakura that though his name is not Arashi and he's actually blonde, his personality is the same, that he never pretended to be something he's not. He convinced the parents not to tell his grandfather Makarov about his trips into Clover Town because he was still training and he wanted to do the Drayar name proud when he finally joined Fairy Tail, so they acquiesced to his pleas. However, he learned something from Shikaku Nara that day that he didn't know before: his parents were alive. Apparently his parents had been in comas for 9 years before awaking in X-773, and then began to search for him in X-774. They'd even contacted their old friends to see if they'd seen him, and they'd all told the two at the time that they hadn't. So now he had meeting and getting to know his parents to look forward to. After an hour walk as usual, he enters into Clover Town proper, and decided to getting his stomach filled before heading to his friends to tell them he's heading for Fairy Tail. He goes straight to Ichiraku Ramen. When he arrives he calls out, "Ayame ne, Tuchi Oji, I've come for the food of the gods." Hearing the blonde's voice, the two ramen chefs smile brightly. Over the years the two haven't changed much. Ayame is now 19, having just celebrated her birthday last month. She's a bit taller now, standing 5 feet 2. Her figure is very womanly, with mid-C cup-sized breasts. In the last few years she's moved from waitress to co-chef, denoted by her white clothing. Tucci hasn't changed at all except getting another age line on his face. The two ramen chefs greet him as he takes his usual seat at the counter, with the older girl coming over to get his order. "So what will it be today, Naruto Ototo? The usual or something new?" The blonde takes a thinking pose for a moment before lighting up and giving his response. "I'll start off with 5 extra large bowls of pork ramen, then 5 extra large bowls of shrimp ramen please, Ne-chan. I'm not going to eat my usual amount seeing as I'm heading to Magnolia in a little while." The brown-haired woman nods her head at this. "All right, that order is coming right up," as she goes to get to work cooking his food. While he eats his ramen, he has his usual conversation with the Ichiraku. Ayame asks him at some point why he's heading to Magnolia, and when he tells her that he's heading there to join his grandfather's guild, Fairy Tail, she immediately understands. After finishing his last bowl, he pats his stomach as usual, and when he goes to pay for his meal, Tucci tells him it's on the house as a going-away present, which causes him to bow his head and thank the man profusely for his generosity before leaving and telling them he'll definitely keep in contact. After leaving the ramen shop, he heads over to the Nara house, as around this time of day Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino would be together there, most likely just enjoying the early afternoon breeze, and usually where Ino was, Sakura wasn't far off, being that they're best friends. Arriving at the Nara house, he knocks on the door. He only has to wait a few moments before it's opened by Yoshino Nara, who smiles up at him, being that he's slightly taller than her as she is only 5 feet 3. "Naruto-kun, come on in. If you're looking for the kids, you know where to find them. I take it today is the day?" The blonde nods at this before replying, "Yeah, today's the day, Yoshino-san. Today is the day I return to my family. You know, I'm actually a little scared. What if I'm not the son that Tu-chan and Ka-chan want? What if my skill as a mage isn't good enough for Ji-chan and he won't let me be a fairy tale mage?" The Nara matriarch gently touches his face, while looking at him with understanding. "Oh, Naruto-kun, you silly boy. You worry for nothing. I happen to know for a fact that your parents have loved you since the day you were born, and even now they continue to search for you so that they can hold you in their arms and tell you how much they've missed you. A parent's job is to love their child unconditionally no matter who or what they become. As for Makarov Dono not letting you join Fairy Tail because you lack skill as a mage, well, you don't have to worry about that one. Your grandfather is a very kind and jovial man, and will accept pretty much anyone into Fairy Tail. In fact, the guild is famous for having the most destructive mages, and Makarov Dono just lets them do what they want. So cheer up, young man, a boy isn't supposed to show fear." She pats him on his cheek as he stands tall and places his usual foxy smile on his face. "Thank you for that, Yoshino-san. Well, I'm heading out back to see the guys and girls." With that, he walks past her and heads out to the back porch. When he gets out there, he finds the 4 he's looking for right away: Shikamaru and Sakura are sitting across from each other playing shogi. Choji is watching them while eating his usual bag of chips, and Ino is tending to Mrs. Nara's flower bush. Over the years each one has changed a little. Shikamaru still has his shoulder-length hair tied in a pineapple-shaped ponytail, however he's gotten taller, now standing at 5 feet 5, and weighing 110 pounds. He is dressed in a green-lined mesh t-shirt under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, adorned on both the sleeves and the back is a circle with a line through it, brown pants, and gray sandals. At the moment he has a look of concentration on his normally lazy-looking face. One thing that's changed is he now sports small hoop earrings in his ears, a sign that he is the heir to the Nara clan. Sakura has changed a bit more than Shikamaru. At 14 years old the girl's pink hair goes down to her shoulder blades, kept up by a burnt orange headband given to her by Naruto for her 13th birthday. She's 4 feet 11 tall, and still gaining her feminine figure. Her breasts are a solid B cup, and her hips are a bit wider, but you can still see a bit of childishness in her. Sakura wears a dark red keep-out dress with white circular designs, with a zipper, tight dark green shorts and strappy slightly heeled sandals. Choji is still a chubby boy, though his body weight has begun to change into more muscle than fat. He is now slightly taller than Naruto, standing at 5 feet 10, and weighing around 200 pounds. He still has spiky, brown hair, and swirl marks on his cheeks. He wears black pants, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved green haori over a light green shirt, and combat boots. He also has hoop earrings in his ears just like Shikamaru, which denotes him as heir of the Akamichi clan. Ino has changed probably the most out of all four. She now stands at 5 feet 1, with a very athletic yet curvaceous figure, and her still developing bust is at least a small C cup. Her platinum blonde hair now reaches down to her waist and is tied into a high ponytail, with her bangs covering the right side of her face. She wears a short purple vest-like blouse with a raised collar, a purple apron skirt that is cut off on the sides, showing off her long legs, and bandages on her stomach and legs to cover the flesh, a requirement from her father, and high-heeled shoes. She too has hoop earrings in her ears for the same reason as Shikamaru and Choji. The most major thing that has changed over the years is that both Ino and Sakura have developed deep crushes on the blonde. Always competing for his attentions, however, Naruto inherited his father's thickness when it comes to idea that they like him as any more than friends. The blonde walks over and sits next to Choji. "Hey Choji, how's the game going?" The chubby teen munches some chips before replying. "Hey Naruto. The game is going pretty good. Sakura-san has been giving Shikamaru a real challenge." The blonde nods at this, knowing how smart Sakura is. The thing though is that Shikamaru has an IQ of over 200, while Sakura's IQ is around 160, which means beating the lazy teen in strategy games is nearly impossible, and the only one who does manage to beat him is his father Shikaku. The silence and the two players' concentration are broken by a squeal of "Naruto-kun," as said boy finds a weight settle on his back, and looks over his shoulder to find Ino hanging off him, with her arms wrapped around his neck from behind. The platinum blonde pouts slightly. "So mean Naruto-kun. Why would you choose to greet Choji first instead of a beautiful girl like me?" The male blonde chuckles at her antics. "Well, you were busy, so I figured I'd leave you to your task." Choji was an easy choice because all he was doing is eating and watching Shikamaru and Sakura-chan play shogi. "You understand, right, Ino-chan?" As he gives the other blonde a winning smile, causing her shudder internally in happiness. She takes herself off his back and positions herself next to him on his left, but keeps her arms around his neck. "I understand, Naruto-kun. What do you say you and I get out of here and go out on a date?" Sakura and Shika could be at that for hours. Naruto chuckles again, however before he can answer, the pink-haired girl finally loses her cool. "Get off of Naruto-kun, Ino pig. He wouldn't go on a date with you if you were the last girl in Fury. Naruto-kun would much rather go out with a girl like me, a girl who is intelligent and mature. Not some flighty bleach blonde like you." This has the effect of not only starting the usual argument between the two girls, but costing Sakura the shogi game. As the blonde and pink-headed girls argue over who he likes more, Naruto and the other two boys lay down in the shade and just stare at the clouds. After a few minuets the lazy Nara sighs, gaining everyone's attention. "Troublesome. You came here to say goodbye, didn't you, Naruto?" The blonde god slayer nods his head in response, as the girls' faces change to ones of sadness. Yeah, I'm heading to Magnolia Town in on the next train, which is an hour from now. He looks at each of his friends' faces, and when he notices the looks on the girls' faces, he wraps them both in a hug. Don't be sad, Sakura-chan. Ino-chan. It's not like I'm going to be gone forever. We can write each other, and heck, when I'm not on missions I can come to Clover Town and visit once a month, so we'll still see each other. Hey, I have an idea. If you guys don't find the Rune Knights to be to your liking, you can quit and come join Fairy Tail. Then we'll definitely see each other all the time. Sakura-chan, since we recently discovered you can use magic and you want to be a healer, you can always train under my granny. I hear she's one of the best there is. They all nod at this, and the girls quickly perk up, as the 5 friends spend the rest of the hour just hanging out. When the time comes for Naruto to head to the train station, his friends accompany him, and when they arrive they find all their parents there as well, which is shocking to them. Mebuki Haruno steps forward and hands the blonde a brown paper package, and when he unwraps it he finds it's a brand new version of his coat, slightly bigger than the one he has on now. That coat is for when you grow some more. It's made to fit you up 6 feet 1 in height, as that's how tall your father is, and we believe you'll take after him in that regard. The blonde gives the woman a hug in thanks. Choza Akamichi steps forward and hands the blonde a styrofoam food box, some food for the trip kid. I'm glad Choji made friends with you, Naruto, because you can eat just as much as an Akamichi and have never made fun of our family for our girth. I wish you luck with your family. Naruto nods up at the large man, as Choza is 6 feet 6. Shikaku hands him a piece of paper. If you ever get into any trouble with the Rune Knights or the Magic Council, Maho Hyogen, which is a part of Fairy Tail, I'm pretty sure you'll do eventually, give that to whoever jams you up and they'll let ya go. Just try not to be too troublesome and go looking for trouble. Naruto chuckles at the man but nods his head in agreement nonetheless. Inoichi the steps forward and hands him some flowers, and when the younger blonde gives him a questioning look he quickly explains. Those are for you to give to your mother as a "I'm home Ka-chan" gift. I remembered what her favorites were. It's to help ease the transition back into at least Kushina's life. As for your father, just talk to him about seals and he'll take to you right away. Naruto gives him a silent thank you. He hears the whistle of the train, and the announcer say that the train to Magnolia Town is leaving in 5 minuets, so he steps onto the train, then looks at everyone. Thank you everyone, for everything you've done for me the past 4 years. You have been my friends, and in some ways my family. I won't ever forget any of you, and this won't be the last you'll see of me. Goodbye all. And with that he walks inside the train car and takes his seat, as the train lurches forward and speeds off towards Magnolia Town. Magnolia Town, July 7th, x 777. 2 hours later, the train pulls to a stop in Magnolia train station. As the blonde steps off the train, he takes a look around the train station and notices that there are a lot more people in this one than were in Clover Station. He exits the station with only the flowers still in his hands, having eaten the food, and stored the new coat in his requip space, and as he gets his first look at Magnolia Town, he can't help but to let a slight gasp escape his lips. Magnolia Town is huge, filled with far more buildings and people than Clover Town ever was. The blonde has never seen so many people in his life, however he quickly regains himself and enters into the town proper. Halfway through his walk through town, he comes to a realization. He has no idea where Fairy Tail is located in town. So he stops at a stall selling apples, buys one, and asks the man running it where Fairy Tail is. Fairy Tail. It's in the south of town, close to the coast. If you keep going up this road 2 more kilometers, it's a big building, 3 floors high, and has a sign over the door that says, Fairy Tail. You can't miss it, kid. The blonde thanks him before continuing on his journey. After about a half hour of walking, he comes up to a large, pyramid-shaped building, which resembles a pagoda, with the front doors looking Arabian in design, and the sign is of course over the doors denoting the place as Fairy Tail. The blonde takes a deep breath, steeling his nerves, before pushing the doors open, and immediately having to duck a flying chair. When he stands back to his full height he notices that the guild is in chaos, as the members are engaged in fighting each other. He makes his way through the chaos, dodging objects as they come at him, and heads straight for the bar, where he sees a small man wearing a blue jacket over a light green tunic-like shirt, blue pants, brown boots, and a weird-looking fuchsia-colored hat, sitting on top of the bar drinking a beer. He can sense that the man has an enormous amount of magical power, but suppressed, and comes to the conclusion right away that this is the master of fairy tale, and his grandfather Makarov Dreyar. When he reaches the bar, he clears his throat before speaking. "Excuse me, sir, but might you be the master of this guild?" Makarov looks up from his beer at the person speaking to him, and nearly drops it in the process, for standing in front of him is almost the spitting image of his son, but with shorter hair, and as he searches the boy's face he finds what he's looking for, the whisker-like birthmarks on the cheeks, and knows immediately that the boy standing before him is his grandson. His surprise, for he schools his features and places his kindly grandfather face on before replying. "Why, yes, I am, young man. I am Makarov Dreyar, third master of fairy tale. What can I do for you?" He watches as the blonde nods his head before speaking again. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Dreyar. I'm your grandson. I would like to join the guild if I can, Gigi." These words are enough to stop all action in the guild, as all the mages present can only stare in shock at the teen's statement, while the older mages are just waiting for their master to explode in rage at this boy's words. However, no one expects what happens next, as Makarov places his beer down, hops off the counter, and starts to walk towards the stairs leading to the second floor. "Follow me, my boy." And the blonde does as told, following the tiny man up the stairs, leaving a bunch of surprised mages in their wake. Naruto follows Makarov to the Mont's office, and as soon as the door closes behind him a seal activates, one he recognizes as a privacy seal. The blonde becomes a little uneasy and tenses, preparing to defend himself if needed, even though he knows he'd lose to his grandfather. The man surprises him though by turning around and looking up at him with a gentle smile. "No need to get tense, Naru-chan. I know you are who you say. It's in the looks. You resemble your father so much when he was your age, though your hair is much shorter. Also, no other child I've heard of has ever had those birthmarks upon your cheeks. Just tell me one thing, my boy. Where have you been all these years?" The blonde sighs in relief, before taking a seat on one of the couches in the room and running his hands through his hair. "Thank you, Ji-chan. For a minute there I thought you didn't believe me and I was going to have to fight you. To answer your question, that's a long story and I'd rather tell it with the whole family present if you don't mind." The white-haired man nods his head at this. "I completely understand, Naruto-chan. Your parents aren't here right now. Your father is out on a S-class mission with your godfather and the guild's ace Guildarts Clive, while your mother is on a A-class mission with your cousin Laxus, helping him gain more experience as a mage. However, they should all be returning in a couple of hours. Minato-chan and Guildarts left 2 days ago and between the two of them the job should be done by now. As for your mother and Laxus, their job was only 3 towns over and they left this morning, so they should be finished already." The blonde deflates slightly at this as he lets out a sigh. "Man, I was hoping that they'd be here when I arrived. Oh well, I guess I can wait a few hours to see them. I mean, I've gone 13 years without seeing or knowing them. What's a few hours more? In the meantime, I'd really like to get to know you, Ji-chan." The old master smiles at this and nods his head. So for the next couple of hours the two Dreyar men sit in the office and get to know each other a little better, with Makarov telling his grandson about his youth. He tells the young blonde how he is part of a long fairy tale legacy, as his own father, the boy's great-grandfather, was one of the founders of fairy tale, which really interests the boy. And when asked about his grandmother, the man tells him that he and she are not married but still very close. About 2 hours into the conversation it dawns on the old wizard saint that he has yet to find out what kind of magic his grandson uses. So wanting to find out, he asks, "I hope you don't mind my asking, Naruto-chan, but what kind of magic do you use?" This question slightly blindsides the 13-year-old. However, before he can answer the question there is a knock on the door, and the old man gets up to answer it. When Makarov opens the door he finds Minato, Guildarts, Kushina, and 16-year-old Laxus Dreyar standing there. He quickly motions for all 4 to enter the room before closing the door and re-engaging the privacy seals. The 4 mages are surprised by this action. However, Minato and Guildarts quickly notice the teenage boy sitting on one of the couches, as the old man addresses them all. Minato Dreyar has changed very little since X764. His hair is still spiky with the jaw-length bangs, though he has a few lines on his face to show he has aged. He's also grown a small goatee on his chin. And his attire has changed. He now wears a long-sleeved black sweatshirt that has yellow lightning patterns around the wrists, long black pants with green wind patterns around the legs, over the sweater is a brown utility vest, and over that is a brand new white coat, with fur lining the collar, with a wave motif around the hem. On the back of his jacket is the kanji for Fairy Tale's Yellow Flash. Kushina Uzumaki Draar hasn't changed at all. Even though she's 34-year-old, she still retains the look of a woman in her 20s. Her long red hair is as vibrant as ever, only right now it's tied up in a high ponytail. However, her violet eyes have a little less shine to them. She's wearing her job attire right now, which consists of an outfit similar to her husband's, except her shirt is short-sleeved, her pants only extend to her calves, and her boots extend up to where her pants cut off. Also, her utility vest is dark green. Shita wears a fur-lined coat, only hers is deep red and has the kanji for Fairy Tale's Queen of Blades on the back. Laxus Draar is your stereotypical teenager, standing at 6 feet tall and weighing 145 pounds. He has the typical Draar family spiky blonde hair, with several bangs over his forehead, and orange eyes. Over his right eye, however, is a lightning bolt-shaped scar. Laxus wears a brown-colored t-shirt over a black sweater, dark green pants, and black shoes. Over his ears he has on a pair of magic headphones. Welcome back everyone. I'm sure that your jobs were huge successes, however we can discuss that later. Minato, Kushina, Laxus, there's some here I'd like all of you to re-meet. With that he leads the three named people around to the front of the couch where Naruto is sitting and motions to the boy. I present to you Naruto Uzumaki Draar. Naruto-chan has come home, my children. The 13-year-old stands up, finding that he's only slightly shorter than his cousin Laxus. Minato and Kushina are in shock, as they take in the young man in front of them from head to toe, doing a sweep of his person in the span of seconds. However, they both quickly zoom in on the same thing that gave it away to the old man: the whisker marks on his cheeks. Kushina steps toward him shakily, and raises her hands, placing them upon his cheeks and rubbing his whiskers. It's really you, isn't it? You're really Naru-chan. My baby. In response, the younger blonde leans into her hands more, smiling softly, and replies, yeah, it's really me, Ka-chan. I'm here, I'm real. I've missed you, Ka-chan. I have something for you. He steps away from the red-haired woman and bends down slightly to pick up the bouquet of flowers from the table and holds them out to her. She gasps slightly, as they're her favorites, Casablanca lilies. She takes them, and proceeds to wrap him in a tight hug, crying into his shirt in happiness. Thank you, Sochi. Thank you so much, they're beautiful. I'm so happy to have you back, to hold you in my arms, my little baby. At this point Minato steps up, placing his hand on Naruto's head and ruffling his hair. Your mother is right, son. It's great to have you back. You have no idea how long your mother and I have searched all over Earthland for you, so to have you show up here at Fairy Tale of all places is a surprise, but a good one. You don't look exactly like I remember you. I remember your hair being exactly like mine, just without my bangs. I can only think of one thing to say to sum up how your mother and I feel, and here it is. Welcome back, Naruto. The love he feels from his parents, as well as his grandfather as the man grows larger and envelops them all in a bear hug, and the acceptance he can see in the eyes of his cousin and godfather are just too much for him, and the 13-year-old begins to cry for the first time in his life, but his tears are, oh you. Thank you all so much for accepting me, and for genuinely loving me, even though I've been missing for nearly 13 years. You have no idea what this means to me. The family disengages from their hug, as Naruto wipes his tears away, and Minato just smiles and pats his shoulder before telling him, of course we love and accept you, Naruto-chan. We're your family, and that's what families do. Now say hi to your cousin Laxus. He's my older brother, your uncle, Ivan's son. Laxus extends his hand for a handshake, and Naruto grips him by the forearm in response. Hey cousin, it's nice to meet you. I'm Naruto, as you already know. I'm 13 and a half. I like ramen, training, learning new seals and runes, and my friends. I dislike bullies, people who put down seal and rune magic, and anyone who messes with my friends. How about you? Laxus is surprised by this introduction for a moment, before he regains his senses and grabs the younger teen's forearm as well and responds. Yeah, nice to meet you again, little cousin. My name is Laxus Draar. I am 16. I enjoy rock music, training, and hanging out with Minato Oji-san. I don't have a favorite food, and my only real dislike is weakness, because I used to be sickly and weak. The younger blonde nods in response to this as the two let go of each other's forearms and just smirk at one another. Gildarts steps forward next, and if Naruto had to use one word to describe his godfather, it would be huge. Gildarts Clive is a man of 38 years old, with slicked back shoulder-length orange hair, and a stubbly beard. He is tall, even more so than Minato, standing at least 6 feet 4 and heavily muscular. His attire is rather simple. He wears a long, black, high-collared and tattered cloak with shoulder plates. Around his waist is a simple belt. Guildarts also wear loose-fitting dark pants, complete with an armored waist guard bearing plates similar to the ones on his shoulders, tucked inside simple boots. The man steps forward and pats him on the shoulder, however that one action nearly sends him to his knees from the strength behind it. "It's nice to finally meet you, kiddo. You know, when your old man told me he wanted me to be your godfather before you were born, I was iffy about it at first. But then I thought what the heck and said yes. However, before I ever got to meet you, a dragon attacked, you went missing, and your parents here went into comas for 9 years. But hey, what you gonna do, right? I look forward to getting to know you now that you're back." This brings about a subject from earlier in Makarov's mind as the old man clears his throat, breaking up the reunion a bit and getting everyone's attention, before addressing the elephant in the room. "Speaking of going missing, Naruto-chan, now that your parents, godfather, and cousin are here, I believe it's time you tell everyone where you have been the past 13 years. We would all very much like to hear about the life you've had up till now, and about the person who raised you." Minato, Kushina, and Guildarts all nod their heads in agreement to this, as Laxus goes over and leans against a wall and crosses his arms in front of his chest. The youngest blonde sighs, before taking a seat on the couch, as his parents take seats on either side of him, and Guildarts sits on the edge of Makarov's desk. Naruto takes a deep breath before he begins. "Well, to answer your questions, Ji-chan, for the last 13 years I've lived in the mountains nearest Clover Town. That's also where I learned the main type of magic that I use, Godslayer magic, Metsujin Maho. This shocks everyone in the room. It shocks Minato and Kushina because their son has been so close all this time and they never even suspected it. Makarov is shocked because he's heard of Godslayer magic. It's a lost magic, Rosuto Magiku, and supposed to be powerful. Guildarts is shocked because he's never even heard of it before. Hell, before today he never even heard of Dragon Slayer magic, Metsuryu Maho. And Laxus is shocked that there's another type of Slayer magic out there. Kushina snaps out of her shock to ask, "You've lived near Clover Town all of these years and yet no one ever saw you, Sochi? And how did you learn Godslayer magic?" Naruto nods his head as he answers back, "Yeah. No one ever saw me because I didn't start actually going into Clover Town till I was 10, and when I did I put up a transformation to change my hair and eye color, and hide my whisker marks. For the first 2 years I went into town everyone knew me as Arashi Namikaze." This causes Minato to laugh out loud and comment, "That's ingenious, son. If no one in Clover Town could connect you to me and your mother, then they would never be able to report your location to us. Did your caretaker come up with that?" The younger blonde nods and responds, "He did. But it didn't matter. I revealed myself a year and a half ago to all my friends and their families. They wanted to report back to you back then, but I convinced them not to as I hadn't finished my God Slayer training yet." The older blonde nods at this, as Makarov brings the conversation back on topic. "You said? That means your caretaker was a man. Did he teach you your God Slayer magic, Naruto-chan?" The 13-year-old nods, "Yeah, but he wasn't a man, at least not a human man. My teacher and adoptive father, the one who taught me God Slayer magic, was the god Zarok. He was good to me all these years, even told me about all of you when I was 7. Kushina becomes angry at this. "He knew you had a family who loved you and were worried sick looking for you, and he still kept you? What kind of god is that? To keep a child from his rightful parents? I'll find this Zarok and rip him apart for keeping my baby from me." Her magic spikes and becomes visible as her anger increases, making her glow red, and her hair begins to swing wildly behind her, looking like 9 tails. However, it all stops when Naruto places his hands over hers and looks at her with a look of pleading. "Ka-chan, please don't be angry, and don't blame Zarok-san for keeping me from you. After he told me, he gave me the chance to end my training right there and bring me here to Ji-chan, but I refused. I told him I wanted to stay and finish my training and become a true Godslayer. But I took an interest in seal magic and rune magic, as well as swordsmanship because of you and Tu-chan, and he helped me pursue those interests. So if you want to be mad at anyone, be mad at me." The redhead deflates at her son's words, and the look in his eyes, and nods her head to let him know she accepts his plea. However, she kisses his forehead and says, "You win, Sochi, but know that no matter what I could never blame you for your decisions." There may be times to come where I may get angry at you for things, but know that no matter how angry I get with you, that I will always love you. Naruto nods at this and hugs his red-haired mother in thanks. Minato clears his throat to get their attention before continuing the conversation. So your childhood was good then? Did you make any friends your own age, or did you spend all your time with the god who raised you? The younger blonde is thankful for his father's changing the subject, as he thinks about all his friends and smiles brightly and begins to tell him about his friends in Clover Town. Kushina and Minato are both shocked to learn that he is friends with the children of Shikaku Nara, Inoichi Yamanaka, Choza Akamichi, and Mebuki Haruno, but smile when he tells them about his Ayame Nichan and how she first introduced him to the food of the gods, ramen. After explaining his relationships with all of his friends, and hearing about the actions of the two girls the last year, Kushina asks if he was dating either of them, and when he tells her no, she inwardly dances in joy that her Sochi hasn't discovered his like of girls yet. Eventually Laxus and Gildarts leave the room and head off to hang around the guild. Makarov decides to get to the original reason Naruto came to the guild. Now Naruto-chan, you said that you wanted to join the guild. And being that you're my grandson and seem to be a strong mage, I accept. Wafer, can you tell me all the magics you can use, just so I can write it for the guild's records? The 13-year-old blonde nods at this as he begins to list off his magics. Well, my primary magic is Storm God Slayer magic. Arashi no Metsujin Maho. But I also know Lightning God Slayer. Kaminari no Metsujin Maho. Wind God Slayer. Fujin no Metsujin Maho. And Water God Slayer magic. Sujin no Metsujin Maho. But could you guys keep my Storm God Slayer magic a secret? I don't want anyone to know about that till I'm ready. All three nod their heads at this, even though their eyes widen in shock at him knowing 4 different types of God Slayer magic. He chuckles at their looks before continuing on. I can also use the regular elements of the last 3, those being lightning magic, Kaminari ke Kakushu Maho, wind magic, K's Maho, and water magic, Mizuke Kakushu Maho. I'm also adept at seal magic, Shiru Maho, and rune magic, Rune Maho, and I can use a bit of requip magic, Konso Maho. According to Zerok-2-san, I also have a small affinity for light magic, Hikari no Maho, and chain magic, Rensa Maho. But I've never learned those. Oh, and of course I have a basic knowledge of transformation magic. All 3 of the older mages are impressed by the sheer range of magics the team can use, and also proud of it as well. Kushina smiles at hearing he has the potential to learn chain magic and makes a comment, I can teach you chain magic if you want, Naru-chan. The blonde nods his head in acceptance and happiness to her offer. Then Makarov coughs into his hand to draw attention to himself. I know a thing or two about light magic, and I would be very happy to teach you what I know. At least one of my grandsons would be getting some of my knowledge. Naruto stands up off the couch, walks over to Makarov and bends down and hugs him. Thank you, G-chan, that would be great. The oldest Drayar pats his back before continuing to speak. Think nothing of it, Naruto-chan. Now where do you want your guild mark and in what color? The 13-year-old thinks about it for a few moments before lifting up his shirt and pointing to his left pectoral and saying, I'll take it right here over my heart, so that I'll always keep the guild, my comrades, and my family close to my heart and make it cover the whole pec. As for the colors, orange with a black outline. The old man nods and applies the guild stamp, leaving a fairy tale symbol that covers his entire left chest area. After this, the 4 dryers get up and head out of the office to introduce Naruto to the rest of the guild and announce his membership. Makarov explains to all the members about who the younger blonde is and then tells them that he's joined the guild, which causes the guild to begin a party in honor of their master's returned grandson and newest member. Naruto, however, goes to meet all younger members of the guild that are closest to his age. He introduced himself to them properly and they all introduce themselves as well. The first person he meets is an 11-year-old boy with spiky black hair, and who seems to have a stripping habit as he's only wearing boxers. This boy's name is Grey Fullbuster, who uses ice make magic, Isu Maiku Maho. The next person he's introduced to is an 11-year-old girl with wavy brown hair, tied up in ponytail, and brown eyes. Her name is Kana Alberona, and she has been in the guild the longest of any of the kids, having been there for 5 years now. Kana wears an orange-colored dress with lines that divide it up, making it look like it's made of blocks. Kana utilizes card magic, Magiku Kado, which is a holder-type magic, Haruda Magiku, that involves the use of magic cards for various effects. Next person he meets is a 10-year-old girl with blue hair which goes down to her shoulders and hazel eyes. Her name is Levi McGarden, and she's only been in the guild for a couple of months. She wears a yellow shirt with no sleeves, and red lining the collar, going down the center of the shirt, and down around the hem, and a red skirt. Levi uses solid script, Sorido Sukuriputo, which is a caster-type magic, Hyasuta Magiku, that involves writing words in the air and making them solid in their depicted form, such as fire being written in fire, and then thrown at the opponent. The next person he meets is a 10-year-old boy with spiky pink hair and black eyes. He also happens to be very hyperactive and tried to attack Naruto at first, but the 13-year-old put him down quickly. His name is Natsu Dragneel, and he just joined the guild today. Natsu wears a long-sleeved, button-up red shirt, tan pants, and plum-colored boots. Around his neck is a scaled scarf, and wrapped around his waist is a yellow sash. Natsu uses Fire Dragon Slayer magic, Hano no Metsuryu Maho, which is, as the name suggests, magic used to slay dragons, and was taught to him by his adoptive father, the fire dragon, Karyu Igneel, who disappeared this morning. The last person that he meets and remembers their name is a 12-year-old girl with long red hair just a shade darker than his mother's that is tied into a braided ponytail, and brown eyes. Her name is Urza Scarlet, and she has been in the guild for a year already. Urza wears a long-sleeved dress that goes down to her knees with a red tie at the neck, long blue pants under the dress which are tucked into brown boots. The odd thing about Urza is that she wears armor which covers her chest, back, and shoulders. Around her waist is a brown belt which loops around twice and holds a sword strapped to her left hip. Urza is the student of Naruto's mother Kushina in both magic and swordsmanship. The reason for the younger redhead's tutelage under the older one is because Urza uses requip magic just like Kushina. However, hers is called the Night Za Naito, which is a magic that allows a person so store not only weapons but armors as well in pocket dimensions and summon them during battle. At first, after finding out that the blonde was her teacher's son, Urza started to call him Naruto Dono and bow to him. However, he put a stop to that and said to just call him Naruto or even Naruto-kun if she wanted, as since she was a student to his Ka-san, then that kind of made her like his little sister. So the 12-year-old decided to start calling him Naruto-ni. He also met a few other younger mages, but he couldn't care to remember their names at that moment. At some point his father introduced him to the generation just above him. He met Mikao Kanbolt, who uses a type of fire magic called Purple Flare, Hipuru Fureya, and Mikao's best friend and rival Wakaba Mine, who smokes a pipe and uses smoke magic, Kamari Maho. He also learned that his godfather uses crash magic, Kurashu, and disassembly magic, Punkai. After a long afternoon of getting to know his fellow mages, and the layout of the guild, that night his mother and father lead him out of the guild and toward their home. Minato and Kushina's home is located in the west forest of Magnolia. It's 2 stories tall and made of brick. As soon as the three enter the house, the elder Dryers turn to their son and say together, "Welcome home, Naru-chan." The teenager looks around at his surroundings, finding that to the left of the entryway is the living room, which has couches and chairs in colors of blue, with coffee and end tables in brown woods. The right along the wall is the stairs to the upper level, and the room on that side off the stairs is what appears to be the dining room, with a large table that has many chairs. Straight ahead, past the stairs and both rooms is the kitchen, which is done in white marble and light woods. Minato and Kushina lead Naruto upstairs, showing him that there are multiple rooms up here. The first room they show him is the library, where they have all sorts of books, both normal and magical. Next they show him their room, the master bedroom, which has a king-sized bed, a large closet, and an attached bathroom. Then they finally come to the most important room in their opinion, Naruto's bedroom. The teen opens the door and walks in to find the room done in reds, yellows, along the walls. One side of the room is a queen-sized bed that is covered in dark orange sheets and blankets, with many different stuffed animals sitting on the pillows. Also on that side of the room is a door that leads to his closet. On the other side of the room is a dark wood desk and chair, with a bookcase sitting next to the desk, and a few feet from that is another door which leads to his own attached bathroom. The blonde teen slowly walks over to his bed and grabs one of the stuffed animals, a large orange fox with 9 tails, and looks at it with a look of recognition. Kushina comes over and touches his arm. "That was your favorite toy when you were a baby. When you first started talking more than baby gibberish, you named him Kurama. You loved him so much that you wouldn't go to sleep without him. Naruto sets the fox plushie down and hugs his mother again. I don't know what to say. It's great, the house, the room, everything. I'm happy to get the chance to actually get to know you both, and Ji-chan and Laxus, and even my silly godfather. Hell, I can't wait to meet Ivan Oji-san. At the mention of the elder Dreyar brother, both of their smiles fade, which causes the younger blonde to become worried and ask, "Did I say something wrong, Ka-chan, Tu-chan?" Minato sighs before running his hands through his hair. No, it's just that Ivan Oni-san is a sore subject. My brother and I don't get along very well, and it mostly has to do with this idea he has in his head that I stole all his thunder as we were growing up. Also, I've never approved of many of the decisions he's made in life, especially where it concerns your cousin. All of that has worked to put us at odds, even though he's still my brother and I still hold love for him. So for the time being, do me a favor, son, and steer clear of Ivan. Naruto nods his head in response but has the intelligence to ask, what does Ivan Oji look like? So I know exactly who to avoid. The two parents nod their heads at this, as the reed-haired mother responds, you can't miss him. He's the only one in the guild taller and bulkier than Gildarts Baka. He has tanned skin, black hair and a black beard, also he speaks with a bit of a lisp. Anyway, enough of that. Why don't you get cleaned up and I'll make us all dinner? Naruto nods, and the two parents exit the room. About an hour later, the little family sits down at the dining room table to eat a dinner of pork, beef, rice, and various vegetables. As they eat, they talk and get to know each other even more, with Naruto finding out that his father is one of the youngest people to ever become S-class when he was 16. When he asked how they fell in love, his mother was all too happy to tell him the story, with Minato filling in some parts. At the end of the night, after they've all gone to bed, the blonde lay in his new bed and can't help but to smile and think about how great the next few years might be with his family. He also thinks about how lively the guild seems to be and knows he'll fit right in with the rest. The last thought on his mind before falling asleep is how he can't wait to take his first job as a legal mage. It's been a little over a month since Naruto returned to his family and joined the Fairy Tail Guild. In the month he's gotten to know his parents, cousin, and even his grandparents even better, having met his grandmother the day after he returned. His first meeting with poor Lyuzuka was forced upon him by his mother, who wanted him to have a health check-up to make sure there was nothing wrong with him physically or mentally, and when he first met her she scared him, though that may have had more to do with her dragon-like cape and being asked to look over, in her words, some brat. However, her demeanor changed when she was informed he was her lost grandson. After that she happily gave him a checkup. She did all sorts of scans with healing magic. She tested his reflexes with a small hammer, checked his heartbeat with a stethoscope, and even drew blood to make sure he had no diseases hiding in his bloodstream, and unknown to Kushina and Naruto, to test it against the reedhead in Minato's blood to be sure he really is their son. After 2 hours of tests, the pink-haired woman gave the 13-year-old a completely clean bill of health, also letting Kushina know that his height and weight are above average for his age, and predicting he'll be taller than her own son. After that day he started to get to know his Ba-chan. Also, over the last month he's been getting to know all the younger mages in the guild, finding out more about them and telling them more about himself. He learned that Gray was taught his magic by a woman named Milkovich, whom he also got his stripping habit from, and that the woman died defending him from a demon. From Natsu, when the boy wasn't trying to attack him and failing miserably, he learned that the boy had been raised since birth by the dragon who taught him his magic, and that he just vanished without a word last month on the same day they both joined the guild. From Levi he learned that her parents died a couple of months ago, and she had nowhere to go until his grandfather found her and brought her to the guild. From Kana he learned that she came to the guild at 6 to find her father after her mother died and left her a letter telling her that he was a fairy tale mage. When asked who her father was she refused to answer, though he did catch her take a quick glance at his godfather Gildarts, and managed to put it together. He spent the most time with Urza though, mostly because his mother had chosen to teach him chain magic at the same time as she teaches the younger redhead requip magic and swordsmanship. The 12-year-old girl has found herself impressed with the blonde's intelligence and skill in magic, watching him pick up the basics of chain magic in only a few days. The two have bonded through sword sparring, with Naruto proving that his adoptive father did not slack on teaching him the blade. The second week of his presence, the armored preteen finally opened up to him and told him about her past slightly, telling him that until a year ago she had been enslaved on an island somewhere in the sea, that while she was a slave she met an old man named Rob who had been a fairy tale mage and taught her about magic. She told him that last year the slaves revolted and she led the revolt against their captors. She helped most of them escape, but old man Rob sacrificed his life to protect her, which caused her magic to activate for the first time. After using her magic to take out the rest of her captives, she decided to go and find a friend of hers that had been taken away before, but when she found him he was different. He had magic and he blasted her away. She woke up on the shores of Fury and made her way to Fairy Tale. During her story she had started to cry, and the blonde had surprised her slightly when he wrapped her in a hug and patted her head, telling her it was all right, and that she never had to go through something like that again. These actions solidified in the redhead's sisterly affection for the older boy. What neither knew was that Kashina had watched and heard everything, and was ecstatic to see her son and the girl she saw as a daughter begin to gain a sibling relationship. Also during the month he finally met his uncle for the first time ever. The meeting happened 1 week ago. He had just gotten himself a drink of juice after a long and hard training session with his grandfather in light magic. He wasn't watching where he was going and ran straight into Ivan, spilling his drink all over the man's shirt. When he'd gone to apologize, he'd noticed the person's features and right away knew that it was his uncle, and so he'd stopped mid-word. Ivan hadn't liked having some little nobody spill their drink on him, and so he decided he would teach the kid a lesson. He raised his hand, balling his hand into a fist, and brought it down upon the blonde, expecting to send the teen flying. However, what happened next surprised not only Ivan, but the rest of the guild. Naruto, sensing danger to himself, root the incoming fist by the wrist with ease. He then reacted the way he was trained, pulling the larger man down closer to him, and then using his hold as leverage leapt up and planted both of his feet into the man's chest, letting go of his wrist in the process, and sent the man flying back and crashing through a table. Landing back on his feet after his attack, he sighed before turning back towards the bar to get another juice. Ivan, however, recovered quickly, standing back to his full height and screaming at the blonde about how dare a nobody little shit like him do something like that to an S-class mage like himself. He raised his hand, preparing to use his magic to attack Naruto. However, a yellow flash appeared, gripping his wrist and looking at him with a look of rage that he'd never seen on his face before, was his little brother Minato Drayar. When Minato asked Ivan what the hell he was thinking trying to use his magic to attack his, Minato's, son, the man was brought up short for a moment. However, he quickly regained himself, ripped his hand from his brother's grasp and said he should have known, as only his offspring would be so stupid as to attack his betters. However, Naruto pointed out that he tried to attack himself first and he just defended himself as he was taught, and to add insult to injury the blonde ended it with, "Not my fault you're so weak that a nearly 14-year-old is strong enough to send you flying through a table, Ivan Ojasan." This comment caused most of the guild to laugh, including Kashina and Makarov. However, it made Ivan even angrier, but knowing that his younger brother was stronger than he, the man let it go and stomped off, saying over his shoulder, "Watch yourself, nephew, your mommy and daddy won't always be around to protect you." And with that he went up to the second floor where only S-class mages can go. Minato, after asking him if he was okay and getting an affirmative, decided to follow his older brother and have a discussion about his behavior. Ever since then Naruto has been keen to avoid his uncle whenever the man is around. Which is hardly ever, as he seems to constantly take S-class jobs, almost like he doesn't want to be around his fellow fairy tale mages, even his own son. When he is around he treats the rest of the guild with disdain, and even insults Laxus for not being S-class yet, calling the 16-year-old weak and a disgrace. Right now we find our blonde god slayer sitting at the bar in the guild hall, with his head laying on the counter, looking bored and annoyed. The annoyance is easy enough to trace. All you have to do is look about 100 feet behind him to find Natsu laid out unconscious again. The boredom, however, stems from the fact that he's been a member of the guild for a month already and he has yet to go on a single job. It isn't from a lack of motivation on his part. Heck, the second day he was there he planned to take a job, but his parents stopped him. Minato and Kashina haven't wanted him to go out on jobs, claiming that they need more time to get reacquainted, though he thinks it has more to do with them not wanting to let him out of their sights again. Makarov, sitting in his usual spot on the bar, looks over at his grandson, and seeing the boy's look decides to see what he can do to help. He walks over and puts his hand on the blonde's shoulder. "What is the matter, Naruto-kun? Tell Ji-chan how he can help you smile again." Naruto looks at his grandfather, raises his head off the counter, and sighs, before answering, "I'm bored, Gigi. Even beating up Natsu has lost its fun." If you want to help, you can tell Ka-chan and Tu-chan to let me go out on a job. I'm going crazy sitting here in the guild, not getting to flex my magic. The old wizard saint nods at the teen's words, and begins to rack his brain to find a solution to his problem. Then he notices his older grandson just standing against one of the wooden pillars of the guild with his arms crossed and eyes closed, and gets the perfect idea. Laxus-kun, come over here please. The 16-year-old opens his eyes, uncrosses his arms and walks over to the bar. When he gets there, he looks at his grandfather and asks, "What do you need, Gigi?" The oldest Drayar looks back and forth between his two grandsons, before nodding his head and responds, "Laxus-kun, I'd like you to take Naruto-kun here out on a job." The two blondes stare at the old man in shock at this. Laxus, however, quickly looks at his cousin and, seeing the boredom in his eyes, replies, "All right, Gigi. But you know I don't take anything under A class. You cool with that, Naruto?" The younger blonde nods his head quickly and answers, "Yeah, I'm good with it. It'll give me a chance to stretch my legs and really show what I can do." "So what did you have in mind, big cousin?" Laxus walks over to the board looking for a good job. After a few minutes he finds one that's A class and comes back over, showing it to Makarov. "We'll take this one. It's a bandit capture mission. Normally things like this would be C class, but rumor has it this group has some dark mages leading them." Naruto gets excited at the prospect of fighting some dark mages, however Makarov has some reservations. "Laxus, I don't think this is the right job to start Naruto-kun on. I mean, he's only been a legal mage for a month and has no experience." The younger blonde, however, stands up and retorts, "It's the perfect job for me to start with, Gigi. My spells are pretty destructive and tailor-made to take on other mages. Besides, I'll have Laxus there to back me up in case things go pear-shaped." As he gives the man his best puppy dog eyes. It's too much for the old man to handle. He sighs, "All right, fine. But if you get hurt, it's going to be you and Laxus explaining why to your mother and father, and I will disavow any knowledge of your going on this mission." The nearly 14-year-old jumps up in joy, giving his tiny grandfather a hug, then turning toward Laxus, "Come on, cousin, let's get this job done and over with. The faster we take out these bandits and dark mages and get back, the faster I prove to Ka-chan and Tu-chan that I can take care of myself." Laxus nods along to his cousin's words, and the two exit the guild together. When they're halfway to the train station, Laxus puts his hand on Naruto's shoulder to stop him, and turns him towards himself. "Okay, hold up, lil' cuz. Before we get to the train station, I think it's a good idea for you to find out where the job is taking place." The younger blonde face palms himself, realizing that he was about to go on a job where all he knew were the details and not the location, so he nods to his cousin to continue. "The bandits and their mage leaders are in Lupinus Town. When we get there, we've got to talk to the mayor." Naruto nods at this, and the two continue on to the train station. They pay for their tickets to Lupinus Town, and take their seats on the train. About 20 minuets later, the train lurches forward and gets underway, heading towards Lupinus Town and all the other towns on the route before it. As the trip goes on, the Drayar cousins sit in silence, but soon enough Naruto decides to end the silence. "Hey Laxus, even though we're cousins, I realize that I don't know all that much about you." The older teen looks at his younger cousin with slight annoyance, but seeing that his eyes show nothing but honest curiosity, he sighs, "What do you want to know about me, Naruto?" This causes the younger blonde to give an honest smile, before he takes a thinking pose. A moment later he decides what he wants to know first. "Well, for starters, you know that I primarily use God-Slayer magic, but I have no idea what kind of magic you use." "So what kind of magic do you use? It must be powerful because I can feel how strong you are." This question surprises Laxus, as he expected the nearly 14-year-old to ask something stupid like what he does for fun. Also, he's surprised that the boy can sense magic power already. He quickly gets his surprise under control and answers, "Primarily I use lightning magic. But since your family, I can tell you that I can also use lightning drenary no Metsuryu Maho. You can't tell anyone about that second one though. Gigi doesn't want anyone except family to know." At first Naruto is thrilled to learn that his cousin can use lightning magic like himself, thinking they can bond some more over it. Then he's completely surprised when he hears the older teen can use Dragon Slayer magic but can't understand how unless he was taught by a dragon. "So you were taught magic by a dragon at some point, cousin? Why doesn't Gigi want anyone but family to know about it?" Laxus sighs at these questions. "No, I never even met a dragon. I'm what's called a second-generation Dragon Slayer, one who gained his or her magic through having a dragon lacrima implanted into their bodies. As for why Gigi doesn't want anyone to know about it, that's because the reason I have this power is because my father had the lacrima implanted into me without the permission or blessing of Gigi, and the implantation was painful. The magic from it was wild and it gave me this scar over my eye. Naruto is shocked by this. During his lessons with Zarok he'd learned about dragons, dragon slayer magic, and lacrima. Zarok had told him that it was possible to gather the magic of not only dragons, but gods and devils, and turn them into a solidified crystalline lacrima, and then implant that lacrima into a person to give them that magic. However, the god had told him that to his knowledge no one who had ever had one of those types of lacrima implanted into them had survived the process. In fact, the god himself possessed 3 of each type of lacrima in his own requip space. So imagine the shock of finding out that not only did your cousin have a dragon lacrima implanted into his body, but survived it and has even learned to use the dragon slayer magic it provides. The younger blonde shakes off his shock quickly enough though. I see. I bet Gigi was pissed when he found out what Ivan Ojasan had done to you. Laxus nods his head at this, and answers. Yeah, I've never in all my life seen Gigi as angry as he was the day we came home. But that was the day I found out exactly why Gigi is considered the 5th strongest wizard saint. As he gains a far-off look, which has awe and fear mixed in. The two slip into silence again, as the train makes a scheduled stop in Onabus town. After another 20 minuets the train starts up again, continuing its path towards Lupinus town. When the two cousins are only 30 minutes from their destination, the older of the two speaks up again. You know, everything I know about lightning magic I learned from Minato Ojasan. Your old man is a good person, kid, so as a favor to him I'll watch your back, but just so you know, I don't like you. You disrespected my 2-san last week. At first Naruto smiles at the comments about his father, but then when Laxus says the last part he scowls. Look, your old man started the whole thing by trying to attack me just because I spilled some juice on his shirt. All I did was defend myself, and then he whined because I took him by surprise and sent him flying. If it weren't for my 2-chan's timely arrival, your old man would have used magic on me. I was well within my rights to do and say what I did. So grow up, Laxus. I mean, you sound childish. You insulted my daddy, so I don't like you. He scoffs at the end. Laxus' body begins to spark with yellow electricity in anger, and seeing this as a challenge, Naruto begins to spark with the same kind of electricity. Laxus quickly calms himself though, and both of them stop sparking. What would you know? It's because of my 2-san that I've become as strong as I am now. He got rid of my sickness and weakness, and gave me the strength to destroy not only my enemies but the enemies of the guild. Anyone who disrespects him disrespects me. Wouldn't you be the same if someone disrespected the god who raised you? The younger blonde just shakes his head at the older teen's words. Listen to yourself, attributing your strength to your father. I would never get angry at someone disrespecting Zarok 2-san because he taught me that a man must handle insults and actions to himself on his own, and not rely on others to do it for him. A man must stand on his own 2 feet and face the world head-on. Ivan Ojasan may have been the one responsible for giving you the tools to become stronger, but it is yourself that took those tools and have become as strong as you are now, not your father, not my father, not even Gigi, only you. The 16-year-old artificial dragon slayer is taken aback by the younger boy's words, and more so the conviction in them. However, he quickly crosses his arms over his chest again, turns his head and scoffs. Whatever, I'm done with this conversation. And with that the two lapse back into silence. However, the younger Drayar has given the older one much to think about. When they finally reach Lupinus station, they disembark from the train and make their way silently to the town hall to speak with the mayor. When they get to the man's office they are stopped by a pretty blonde secretary. Excuse me, young man. Can I help you with something? Laxus remains silent, but Naruto smiles at her and answers back. Yes, we're fairy tale mages. We've come to speak to the mayor about the bandits that have been plaguing your town. Upon hearing this the woman perks up immediately and replies. Oh. Give me a moment to let him know that you are here. With that she gets up and walks into the mayor's office. A few moments later she comes back out. The mayor will see you now. As she motions them inside, they enter the office and find that it's your stereotypical politician's office, with a wooden desk with 2 chairs in front of it, and sitting behind it in a big wing-backed chair is the mayor of Lupinus town. The mayor is a tall and skinny man, with slightly wolfish features, dark brown hair with gray at the temples, and brown eyes. He wears a pressed suit with a dark red tie, and on his head is a top hat. His name is Mayor Farkas. Farkas looks at the two fairy tale mages that have just entered his office, noticing similar features between the two, like their blonde spiky hair, and similar facial features and builds. So you're the mages that Fairy Tale has sent to deal with the bandits and the dark mages who lead them. Nice to meet you. I am Mayor Farkas. Not to sound rude, boys, but aren't you a little young for something like this? Both blondes are insulted by this but don't show it on their faces, as it's Naruto who answers, I assure you, Mayor-san, we are more than qualified to do this job. I'm going to be 14 in 2 months, and my cousin here is 16. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Drayar, and this guy next to me is Laxus Drayar. Upon hearing the boys' names, Farkas' eyes widen in recognition. I see you are the son of Fairy Tale's Yellow Flash and Queen of Blades. Then, and both of you are the grandsons of the Titan, Makarov Drayar. Please forgive me for doubting your power. The two inwardly groan at this, as neither of them really want to be known because of their family's fame. However, Naruto is a bit more vocal about it. Please, Mayor-san, we would appreciate it if you didn't compare us to our family. We are our own men and we'd much rather be known for our own skills than those of the line we come from. Now tell us about the bandits and their leaders. The man nods his head at this, impressed by the younger boy's drive. The group we need you to beat consists of around 60. They are led by two dark mages named Tanbu and Kanbu. They're brothers. Tanbu uses earth magic while Kanbu uses darkness magic. Yami no Maho. They usually come into town to raid us once a week. They're based 10 miles from here in the forest north of us. The two nod at this information, putting it away in their minds for reference. Laxus, however, has to ask something that's been bugging him. Why did you send this job out to the guilds? I thought Lupinus Town had a regiment of rune knights stationed here. Why not just let them handle it? At this, Farkas looks down sadly. The regiment of rune knights in town did try to stop this group of furs. However, Tanbu and Kanbu killed every last one, and told us if we went to the Magic Council for more, they would destroy the town, kill all the men, and sell the women and children off to slavers. Naruto becomes angry at the mention of slavery, as his body begins to emit black electricity, shocking both Laxus and the mayor. The boy turns on his heel and starts for the door. We'll take care of these bastards, Farkas-san. Come on, Laxus, it's time to show these bandits why Fairy Tale is famous for being the most destructive guild in all of Fury. Laxus shrugs his shoulders at the mayor and turns to follow his cousin. They two Fairy Tale mages exit from the northern entrance of Lupinus Town, and begin to walk through the forest. As they walk, Naruto stops sparking, and regains his usual composure. However, Laxus can't help but ask, what was that back there, kid? As soon as the mayor mentioned slavery, you completely lost it. The younger blonde closes his eyes and takes a deep breath before answering back. I hate slavery, and those who enslave others. I was taught by Zarak-Tu-san that every creature has a right to be free, and that those who enslave others are nothing but bullies. Also, someone I've grown close to was once enslaved and was treated worse than dirt, and I'll be damned if I allow anyone else to go through what she did. And with his piece said, the two fall back into silence and continue on their way to the bandit camp. After walking for more than an hour, they finally reach the bandits' camp. Looking at it from behind some trees, they can see that it's made up many tents, each one housing at least 5 bandits. The largest structure in the camp is what appears to be an earthen house, most likely where the Mage brothers reside. Most of the camp is sitting around bullshitting, some are training, and others are eating. However, Tanbu and Kanbu are nowhere in sight, but they can feel the two's magic inside the earthen house. After observing for a bit, Laxus comes up with a plan of attack. However, before he can tell Naruto the plan, he finds the blonde missing. When he searches out the blonde's magical energy, he finds it inside the camp, and when he looks towards where he senses it, he sees the younger blonde going through and taking out all the bandits like no tomorrow. He's like the wind in his actions. Soon enough, all 60 bandits are knocked out and restrained, and the older Drayar enters the camp proper and walks up to his smirking cousin. However, before he can say anything to the younger blonde, he's forced to dodge a fist made of earth, and sees that Naruto had to dodge a beam of dark magic. When the two cousins land from their dodges, they're standing next to each other, and looking across the camp from them, they spot the two dark mages, Tanbu and Kanbu. Tanbu is a tall man with sandy brown hair, brown eyes, and a full beard, wearing a brown shirt, tan pants, and brown combat boots. Kanbu is slightly shorter than his brother, his brown hair darker and buzzed, no facial hair, and he wears a dark purple button-up shirt and black pants with black boots. Tanbu looks around at all the bound bandits, then back at the two mages in front of them and addresses his brother. Looks like we got a couple of little do-gooder mages here, Kanbu. They took out all our boys. What do you think we should do with them? The younger brother smiles maliciously before answering back. I say we gut them and hang their corpses in the center of Lupinous Town to show the people what happens when they go around our rules, Tanbu. The older brother smirks in response to this, as the two release their magic. Tanbu's coming off the man in waves of brown, while Kanbu's comes off in waves of purple. Two magic circles appear in front of each man, brown and purple respectively. Tanbu intones, Iron Rock Drill. Tetsu Raku Doriru, as a large spinning drill of rock as hard as iron rises from the ground and heads straight for Laxus. Meanwhile Kanbu yells out, Dark Wave. Daku Vevyu, as he releases a large wave of dark energy at Naruto. The two Drayar boys gather their own magic, Laxus sparking with yellow lighting as a large yellow magic circle appears in front of him and he says, Lighting Beam. Kaminari Bimu, as a medium-sized beam of lightning comes from the seal and meets the drill of rock head-on, causing the two attacks to collide and explode. Meanwhile Naruto takes a horse stance, draws in a deep breath, accumulating black lightning in his mouth as a dark yellow magic circle with black outlining it appears in front of him, and then he releases his spell, Lightning God's Bellow. Kaminari no Dogo. The blonde god slayer releases an enormous beam of blackish-yellow lightning which when it meets the wave of darkness completely overwhelms it and continues on towards the two dark mages. Tanbu and Kanbu are forced to split up by dodging in different directions, and the attack hits their earthen house with a large boom destroying it completely. The two brothers, as well as Laxus, are completely astounded by the destructive power of the younger blonde's spell. Kanbu looks back at his opponent with rage and fear in his eyes. What the fuck was that? I ain't never heard of black lightning before. What the fuck are you, kid? The younger blonde just smirks, and begins to spark with regular yellow lightning before answering, My name is Naruto Uzumaki Drayar. I'm a godslayer. But you can call me Fairy Tail's Godslayer, and I'm the guy who's going to kick your ass and send you to prison. As he takes off, closing the distance between them in a matter of seconds and lands a right hook to Kanbu's face, sending him flying into a tree. Tanbu, seeing his brother being hit so easily, becomes angry and goes to attack the younger blonde from behind, forgetting about Laxus. The older blonde makes him pay for it, as he appears out of a bolt of lightning and kicks the larger brother in the stomach, bending him in half and sending him flying through 3 trees. You didn't forget about me, did you, big fella? Your opponent is me. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Laxus Drayar, Fairy Tail's Lightning King, and I'm going to be handing you your ass today. Back with Naruto and Kanbu, the older mage stands back up, glaring at the young upstart, summoning up his magic and encasing his fists in darkness magic before rushing the blonde pretty fast, intent on engaging him hand to hand, saying, Dark Fists. Daku Ken. However, the blonde encases his fists in lightning and meets him head-on, intoning, Lightning Fists. Kaminari Ken. As the two's fists meet and causes a shockwave, however they quickly begin to exchange punches at high speed, causing shockwaves and sparks of lightning and darkness to go all over the place. Back with Laxus and Tanbu, the larger brother keeps launching earth spells at the 16-year-old blonde, however the teen just continues to either dodge them using Lightning Body, Kaminari Tai, or meet them with his own lightning spells. The dark mage begins to get fed up with the Fairy Tail mage's tactics, and decides to take a more direct approach, summoning a large brown magic circle underneath himself. Seeing this, Laxus decides to end the fight right there, and quickly makes his way toward the man, coming out of his lightning form with a punch straight to the man's face, which is not as effective as it should be, only sending the man skidding back 10 feet, and hurting the blonde's hand. Tanbu laughs at this, ha ha ha. What's wrong, punk? Did you injure your hand on my face? I'm afraid it's a byproduct of my iron rock armor. Tetsu Raku Yoroi. It increases my defense and my offense. As the man unleashes his own punch on Laxus, which sends him flying, however he flips and lands on his feet, spitting out some blood. Back with Naruto and Kanbu, their fight of fists and feet is drawing to a close, and the one who has the advantage is not the older mage, but the blonde who has been steadily increasing his speed throughout their scuffle. In anger, Kanbu overextends on a punch, which the blonde dodges under and allows him to get inside his personal space. I-fied punches, which have the effect of electrocuting him. He ends it with a double axe handle to the head, sending the man face first into the ground, causing a crater. The younger blonde jumps back away from his opponent, keeping his defense up. A good thing he does too, as the man rises from the ground, his face singed and bloody, and a look of absolute rage and hatred in his eyes. You little bastard. His body erupts into purple energy at this. I'll show you. I'll teach you what it means to fuck with those stronger than you. Die. As he extends his left hand, gathering a huge amount of dark energy, as a huge purple magic seal appears in front of himself, and then bringing his hand towards the seal says, "This is a spell taught to me by our former master. It's different from his but just as powerful. Eat it. Dead wave. Deado Vevu." As he sends a larger wave of dark energy at the 13-year-old, splitting anything in its path, including the very ground itself. Naruto, seeing the attack coming at him, uses Requip and summons his magic pen. Using the magic pen, he draws a seal in the air, and finishes it just in time, calling out, "Seal magic. Light barrier. Shiru Maho. Hikari barrier." As a barrier of light appears around the blonde, blocking the wave of dark energy. When the attack dies down, the older mage is shocked to find the blonde still standing in the same spot, unharmed. Back with Laxus and Tanbu, the older blonde is beginning to become frustrated as none of his attacks are doing all that much damage to the man, and all he can do is dodge the older mage's strikes. Finally, having enough, Laxus dodges another kicks and gets distance between him and Tanbu and decides to end it. His body erupts into even more lightning, as he raises his fist in the air, summoning a large yellow magic circle and addressing the man. "Well, this has been boring. I'm tired of screwing around with you, so I'm going to test this new spell I learned recently on you." The brown-haired man smirks idly and replies, "Bring it on, punk. I'll take your best spell head on and then break you in half," as he crosses his arms and takes a strong stance. The blonde smirks before chanting. Resounding through the air, the roar of thunder, plunge from the heavens and reap destruction. Raging bolt. Rijingu Boruto. As a large bolt of lighting descends from the sky upon Tanbu, encompassing the man in a blast of electricity. When the attack fades away, it shows Tanbu laying flat on the ground, unconscious and burnt to a crisp, but alive. Laxus breathes a sigh of relief. "Good, that took a lot out of me. If he'd still been standing after it, I would have had a much harder time beating him. Now I just gotta wait for my snot-nosed cousin to finish up with the younger brother." As he finds a tree stump and takes a seat to rest. Back with Naruto, the youngest Drayar lets his barrier drop and sighs in relief that it held. Before he smiles at the look of utter disbelief on Kanbu's face, and notices that Laxus has finished his fight. Sigh. "Looks like we have to end it here. My cousin just beat your brother and he tends to get cranky when he's made to wait. So the next attack will be the last, but this fight was fun. If you ever escape prison, look me up and I'll fight you again." As he summons up his magic, his body sparking with lightning magic. He lifts his right hand in the air and gathers a combination of yellow and black lightning in it, creating a ball of electricity that begins to get larger and larger until it's as big as a large meteorite. He his hand back to throw it, intoning, "Lightning God's Bomb. Kaminari no Bakuden." As the ball of lightning makes its way to the dark mage, the man attempts to put up a defense, summoning a wall of darkness. However, the lightning ball breaks through it with ease, hitting him and exploding with a big BZZT. When the electricity clears, it shows Kanbu laying on the ground on his back, completely knocked out, fried, and still sparking with lightning energy, which causes him to twitch, showing he is still alive. The blonde 13-year-old claps his hands together to show it's done, as he ties up Kanbu and slugs him over his shoulder, carrying over to set him down next to his brother Tanbu, who is also bound. Naruto looks at Laxus with a smirk. "Well, that's that. I'd say my first mission is a huge success, wouldn't you, Sparky?" Laxus growls at his younger cousin but says nothing, instead taking out a lacrima to call the Rune Knights. 2 hours later, the Rune Knights capture unit arrives, led by the head of the unit, Heishi Hyuga. The Hyuga clan head steps up to the two Drayar boys and nods his head to them. "You have our deepest thanks for your fine work today, boys. With those two captured, Lupinus Town can receive a new regiment of knights and sleep peacefully at night. You are both credits to your family, and Naruto, I am sure your parents will be proud of your accomplishments here." Good day, boys. With that, the Rune Knights take the bandits and the Dark Mages away, and the boys return to Lupinus town. They inform the mayor that the job is done, for which the man thanks them profusely for, and gives them their payment, 700,000 jewels. The boys take the first train back to Magnolia Town that afternoon, leaving behind a happy town, and unknowingly earning themselves a title from Lupinus Town. The people had seen all the lightning being thrown around from town and decided to call the two fairy tales Lightning Brothers, Firi Tirus Kaminari Kyodai. When they got back to the guild, they found an angry Minato and Kushina, which caused Laxus to go elsewhere as he didn't want to be in the middle of the storm to come. The two parents let Naruto have it, telling him how foolish he was to go on an A-class job without informing them or getting their permission. When he pointed out that the job was easy and that neither he nor Laxus suffered any damage whatsoever, they pointed out Laxus wasn't their son and was close to being S-class, while he was not, and that if something happened to him they wouldn't know what to do. The youngest Dreyar then reminded them that he was trained by a god, and that compared to his slave driver of an adopted father's training, taking out 60 bandits and 2 dark mages was a walk in the park. He also let them know that he'd been getting bored just sitting around the guild with nothing to do but train and beat up Natsu, and that if he wanted to be as strong as them someday he'd need to get out there and do jobs and get experience. He ended it by telling them that he's almost 14, he's not a baby and he doesn't need their protection, he can handle himself, as he had been doing since he was 7 years old, then storming off out the back door of the guild. Kushina wanted to follow him, but Minato stopped her, and instead allowed Urza to head out to try and calm her Oni-san down. After everyone cooled down, Minato and Kushina realized they were being overly protective and slightly childish and apologized to their son. Naruto on the other hand realized that they were just doing what parents do and trying to look out for him, and apologized for sneaking off to do a job without telling them. From that day on, the Dreyar parents stopped being so protective of Naruto, and the 13-year-old began to tell them when he was taking a job, sometimes taking along Urza, Kana, and even Gray. On October 10th of that year, Naruto's 14th birthday, the guild threw a huge party for him, even inviting his friends from Clover Town to celebrate. The party ended up like any fairy tale party and devolved into a huge fight. Even Shikaku, Choza, and Inoichi got involved in it. In the end, Makarov had to grow to 12 feet tall and release his magic to stop the brawl, even physically separating Choza and Gildarts, who were fighting over a piece of meat. In the end, Naruto had a great time, and could finally say he knew what it felt like to have a family. Magnolia Town, June 12, X778. Today is like any other day in Magnolia Town, bright and sunny, with the people going about their daily routines. At Fairy Tail, the members of the guild can be found talking as usual. However, at the moment, the older and younger mages are watching the usual argument between the armored red-haired 13-year-old Requip mage Urza Scarlet and one of their newest members, a white-haired, blue-eyed, 13-year-old girl named Mira Jane Strauss. Mira Jane Strauss is a 13-year-old girl with long white hair which she keeps tied up in a ponytail with a purple ribbon that has a skull on it and blue eyes. She wears a purple tube top, showing off her toned stomach, blue short shorts, and thigh-high black boots. Around her neck is a black choker. Mira Jane uses a unique brand of takeover magic, Teiku Oba, called Satan Soul, Satan Soru, which allows her to take over the forms of demons and use their powers. Mira Jane is also the oldest of 3 siblings. She has a brother who is a year younger than her named Elfman, and a sister 2 years younger named Lisanna. Elfman Strauss is 12 years old, and is tall and large for his age. He has short messy white hair, and dark blue-colored eyes. He wears a full dark blue suit, with white button-up undershirt and red bow tie, and black dress shoes. Much like his elder sister, Elfman uses takeover magic, however his brand is called Beast Soul, Basuto Soru, which allows him to record a monster, or in his case a monster's body part he has touched, and either take their form or summon that part to his own arm. Lisanna Strauss is an 11-year-old girl, and is average height for her age. She, like her siblings, has white hair but it's cut in a Heim style, and like her sister she has blue eyes. She wears a pink button-up dress which reaches down to her just below her thighs, and red shoes. Lisanna, just like her siblings, uses a brand of takeover, but her brand is called Animal Soul, Animaru Soru, which as the name suggests allows her to transform parts of her body into animal parts, or turn her whole body into the specific animal. The Strauss siblings joined the guild in May, after their parents died, To make some money to feed her siblings, Mira took a job exorcising a demon from a church. However, when she completed the job, she found that her entire right arm had turned demonic and would not turn back. This scared the villagers and they ran the three out of town, so they made their way to Fairy Tale, where Makarov told her about what kind of magic she had. However, she saw herself as a monster and was going to leave her siblings with the guild. Before she could, however, she was stopped by Naruto. The blonde told her that just because she could take the parts and forms of demons didn't make her a monster. He told her what would really make her a monster is abandoning her siblings when they needed her the most. These words really hit the 13-year-old hard. Just as she was about to make up her mind about what to do, Elfman and Lysana came out of the guild and showed her that they'd learned takeover magic from Makarov, and now she didn't have to be alone. This caused her to make her decision and she stayed, and the three became known by the guild as the Takeover Siblings. However, that day had the side effect of causing the eldest Strauss sibling to gain a crush on the blonde-haired God Slayer. And so every chance she gets now she flirts with him. The first time she did this it didn't go over too well with Urza, who said she was a skank and should stay away from her Oni-san. This began the rivalry between the girls, which goes on to this very day months later. As the two butt heads and lock hands, trying to push each other back and fighting for dominance, they begin glowing red, Urza, and purple, Mirajane, respectively, and they throw insults at each other. The blonde God Slayer, who is indirectly responsible for this new round of arguing, can only sit at the bar, sipping his juice, and shake his head. He turns to his laughing father and addresses the man. To-san, rather than sit there and laugh about Urza Imoto and Mirajane-san fighting, shouldn't you break it up? I mean, they're fighting about nothing. The former wizard saint just shakes his head at his son's thickness at not noticing the feelings that Mira has for him, and answers back, "That's not a good idea, son. You never get in the middle of women fighting. That's a recipe for untold pain. It's best to just let them fight and get it out of their systems, that way everyone is happy. Besides, they have a reason, you just don't quite understand it yet." The younger blonde just looks at his father in confusion, before shrugging his shoulders and going back to his drink. While the older blonde just chuckles at the boy's response, and continues to watch his surrogate daughter and the girl he gets the feeling will end up being his daughter-in-law in the future, fight. Kushina can be heard rooting for the younger redhead to kick the white-haired girl's ass, while Lysana can be heard trying to get her sister to stop fighting with Urza and get along. Makarov just sits on the bar with a smile on his face, and thinks to himself, this younger generation is quite lively, that's good. They are the ones who will inherit the guild, and the spirit of Fairy Tale, and pass it on to the generation after them. I think that soon it will be time for me to call it quits as master, and pass the title down to someone a bit younger, but who should it be? Ah well, I can cross the bridge when I come to it. For now I'll continue to watch over all my children and see what the future holds. It has been 5 years since Naruto Uzumaki Draar reunited with his family and joined the Fairy Tale Guild. 5 years since he met and started to get to know his generation, and in that time he can say he's grown close to every one of the younger mages, treating most of them like younger siblings. Gray, Natsu, and Elfman all call him Naruto Nisan, while the others mostly call him Aniki. The only exceptions to that are Mira and Urza. The white-haired girl calls him Naruto-kun, while the redhead calls him Oni-san. Many things have changed in the last 5 years, first and foremost being that Naruto has grown and changed his look a bit. At 18 years old he is now at his full adult height of 6 feet 2, only an inch below Laxus at 6 feet 3, and an inch above his father at 6 feet 1. He now weighs 190 pounds and as Mira is prone to drool about, it's all muscle. His outfit now consists of a dark orange tank top with the image of a storm on the front of it, dark blue jeans tucked into black combat boots. Over the tank top is a utility vest like the ones his parents wear, except his is gray and he leaves it unzipped. Over all of this is his gray coat with the black fur lining the collar, and on the back is the triangular formation of his elements. But below that is the kanji for Fairy Tale's God Slayer. Firi Tiru's Gado Shiraya. The moniker was given to him last January after he went on a mission and demonstrated his use of 2 of his now 4 individual elemental God Slayer magics. That's another thing, in the last few years Naruto has learned another God Slayer magic. In this case he learned the part of Storm's Zarok left out, Ice God Slayer magic. Kori no Metsujin Maho. Along with learning a new God Slayer element he also learned Ice, Kori Maho, and Snow magics, Yuki Maho. he learned his newest God Slayer magic from a book that Zarok had given to him the day before he went back to his family. Over the years, Naruto has taken on many jobs, making a great deal of money, and now lives in the Fairy Lake male dorm, which sits west of the guild and just off of the lake, which he paid to have rebuilt after Natsu destroyed it. He owns the most rooms at 7, so it's like a penthouse apartment, and it costs him 700,000 jewels per month. Also, another change is that the blonde is now an S-class mage of the guild, making that distinction just after his 16th birthday, tying his father for the record, and being the last Dreyar to become S-class, as Laxus had done so in X778 at age 17. However, Naruto and Minato's record was shattered 2 years ago when Urza became an S-class mage at 15 years old, and she is now known as Titania. The only other person to become S-class in the last 5 years has been Mirajane, who achieved the Ran Mira is known as the Demon, and has teamed with Naruto often, her feeling for him growing more and more as the years have rolled on. The difference now being that whenever she flirts with the blonde, he knows it and he flirts back with her, causing her to blush and stutter a lot around him. That's not to say there aren't more S-class mages in the guild. There are 2 more, however they are in the same generation as Mikao and Wakaba. Their names are Kakashi Hitaki and Obito Uchiha, the former students of Minato Dreyar. The 2 men joined Fairy Tail in X779, after leaving their guilds, Quattro Cerberus and Blue Pegasus respectively, so that they could see their teacher once again and fight beside him. They were both S-class mages in their own guilds, and so Makarov allowed them to keep that status within Fairy Tail, as Quattro Cerberus and Blue Pegasus are run by his friends and former teammates. Another thing to change in the last 5 years is that in X779 Makarov excommunicated his eldest son Ivan for crimes against the guild. This action caused a rift to open up between Laxus and the rest of his family, as the then 18-year-old begged the old man to reinstate his father, and when he wouldn't he went to his uncle to have him convince the master to bring back Ivan. However, when Minato said he couldn't do that and that Ivan deserved his fate, it enraged the young man and he basically turned his back on his family. There have been other changes over the years, such as Sakura joining Magnolia Hospital to learn how to be a doctor and medical mage under the tutelage of the head doctor, Minato's 3rd student, Rin Nohara. Ayame Ichiraku coming to Magnolia Town in X780 and opening up another branch of Ichiraku Ramen, which Naruto goes to all the time to eat. Everyone has changed, gotten older, taller, in the case of most of the girls more womanly, and all have gotten stronger. The guild has continued to be a place of fun, but over the last couple of years has seen a large rise in popularity and prestige, being named the #1 guild in all of Fury. Another thing that has changed is that a couple of months ago Makarov retired as guild master and handed the title down to his son, naming Minato Dreyar the 4th master of Fairy Tail, and Minato once again took up a position as a wizard saint in X779. Though the old man is still around, acting as his son's advisor, and when the younger man has to go to regular guild master meetings will temporarily take control of the guild again. Today we find the Strauss siblings returning to the guild from another successful mission. Over the years each one has changed. Mira, who is now 17, stands at 5 feet 2, 5 feet 4 in her heeled boots, with a more womanly figure, and D-cup breasts which are covered by a black halter top, showing off a good deal of cleavage. She also now wears a purple skirt with a white belt, and her usual thigh-high heeled boots. Her white hair is still tied up in a ponytail but is now in 2 layers, with the second layer going down to her shapely rear. Her white fairy tale stamp is located on her left thigh. Elfman Strauss has had the biggest growth of all the younger generation. At 16 years old he now stands at 6 feet 5. His body is heavily muscled and tan. His white hair is longer now and is kept styled upwards in long, wavy spikes. His attire now consists of a dark blue jacket with purplish blue inners, held closed on the front by a line of large buttons, with similar buttons on the back of the sleeves. The back of his jacket is adorned by large, light kanjis, which read, "The Greatest," and the jacket itself seems to be worn over a light red shirt, loose pants matching his jacket, held up by a simple belt, and traditional Japanese geta sandals, held in place by bands colored the same as his jacket's inners. His black fairy tale stamp is located on the left side of his neck. Lisanna Strauss is now 15 years old. Her white hair has grown to the nape of her neck and is now in a more messy look. She wears a short, dark red dress with a white collar and bow, Upon her arms above her elbows she wears gold rings with a pale pink fabric flowing down from them. She wears tall, black socks along with brown shoes. Also her chest has grown, now a high C cup. Also she has a close relationship with Natsu Dragneel. They are best friends, but everyone can tell she feels more than that for the boy, except the boy himself. Her red fairy tale stamp is located on her left arm just below her shoulder. The three siblings enter the guild with Mira kicking the doors open and telling out, "Mira is back, bitches." Tremble and fear at the awesome power of the strongest woman in fairy tale. Everyone in the guild stares at the 17-year-old takeover mage blankly, more than used to her behavior, though Macau and Wakaba groan about her being back. Lisana just shakes her head at her eldest sibling's antics and reprimands her. "Mira, nay, you need to stop being so loud, and watch your language." The older white head just scoffs at her baby sister's words and marches up to the bar, where Minato is sitting on a stool having some tea, while Lisana goes off to find Natsu and Elfman heads off with his head hung low, sad about still being unable to do a full body takeover. She smacks the counter to get the Mon's attention, and when the blonde turns to her she smiles and says, "S-class job to destroy Dark Guild completed, Master Minato. Now point me in the direction of Naruto-kun so I can run my hands along that chiseled body of his." The fourth fairy tale master chuckles at the young woman's words and the look on her face when she mentions his son's body. He sips his tea, smiles at her and answers back, "Good work as always, Mira-chan. As for my son, you missed him by a day. He left on an S-class mission to clear out a nest of wyverns yesterday. Sorry, Mira-chan." This causes the white-haired woman to pout and stomp off, muttering about how unfair life is, and within a few minuets she's taking her frustrations out on her favorite punching bags, Wakaba and Macau. While that is happening, Lisana is in Magnolia Park hanging out with Natsu and the flying blue cat they hatched together 4 years ago, Happy. Happy is a blue cat who stands on only his hind legs, can speak, and uses a magic called Era, which allows him to sprout white angelic wings and fly. After a couple of hours of hanging out with her two favorite boys, they're interrupted by Mira and Elfman. The older girl comes up to the two younger mages. "Lisana, come on, we have another S-class job. This time we're taking out a beast called the King of Monsters. So it should be challenging." The younger girl is surprised by this and answers back, "Another one already, Mirane? But we just got back from a job. I was hoping we could take a few days off and rest." The eldest sibling shakes her head at this. Natsu hops to his feet with fire in his eyes and says, "Hey, I got a great idea. Why don't I come with you? That way you have backup in case something happens, plus it sounds like just the job for me." Mira, however, laughs at this before replying, "Yeah right, you back up? I don't think so, weakling. We can handle this ourselves." When the pink-haired boy goes to retort to this, the middle Strauss sibling places his hand on his shoulder and speaks. "Don't worry, Natsu, I've got my sister's backs. A man has to protect his family with his own two hands, and if I can't protect Nei-chan and Imoto, then I can't call myself a man." Natsu is surprised by the bigger teen's words, but still pouts at not getting to go. Lisana giggles at her best friend and secret crush's actions. As the siblings walk off, the youngest white head turns towards the Dragon Slayer and says, "Hey Natsu." Getting his attention, she lifts her right arm in the air with her pointer finger and thumb out, showing the symbol of their guild, to which he returns the gesture as she turns and leaves with her siblings. Meanwhile, with Naruto, the blonde can be found walking down a dirt road, heading in the general direction of Magnolia Town. Having completed the wyvern extermination, the town that called for the job gave him their GROO jewels reward, and allowed him to take one of the creature's horns. So not being in a hurry to get home, he decided he'd just walk and enjoy nature. He's just strolling down the road, humming a tune and enjoying himself, without a care in the world, when suddenly he feels a buzzing inside his coat. He reaches into the right pocket and takes out a round lacrima the size of his hand and holds it up, pushing some magic into, and as soon as he does, his father's face appears in the crystal. He smiles at the man. "Hey Tu-san, what's up?" The older man looks at him with a serious face, which causes the smile to drop from his own face, as the fourth master replies, "Naruto, where are you right now?" The S-class mage looks around and answers, "On the road about 15 miles from Shirotsume town. I finished off the wyverns this morning and now I'm just taking my time coming back to the guild." "Why?" The wizard saint nods at this and sighs before replying back, "I need you to do me a favor, son. I might just be getting overly cautious in my old age, but better safe than sorry. The younger blonde is confused by this, so asks. What's wrong, Tucson? You know, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. Minato nods to his son and proceeds to explain. Well, a couple of hours ago, Mira-chan, Elfman-kun, and Lisana-chan came back from their S-Class Dark Guild destruction mission. However, when Mira found out you weren't here, she got slightly angry. Well, she decided to take another S-Class mission right away. The one she took was one that has been sitting around for a while, the mission to take out the king of monsters, the beast. At the mention of the job that Mira took, Naruto instantly reacts, knowing all about that job, having thought of taking it himself soon. How could you let her take that job, Tucson? You should know how many mages have been killed by the beast. The older blonde scowls at his only son before responding. I know that, Naruto. That's why I've contacted you. I trust Mira-chan to handle it, but I get a feeling something may go wrong, so I want you to head towards Akane Resort. And keep watch. If anything does happen, step in. Otherwise, stay out of sight and leave it to Mira-chan and her siblings. The blonde nods his head as he cuts off the transmission, places the lacrima back into his coat pocket and turns in the direction of Akane Resort, summoning wind magic under his feet and rockets off into the sky. The blonde would barely arrive in time to stop a tragedy from occurring. Back with the Strauss siblings, the three white-haired teens reached their destination and immediately went to the mayor to let him know they were there and they would take care of the beast. The man thanked them and told them where the monster could be found, and then warned them to be careful as he didn't want to see any more young mages killed. Mira told him not to sweat it, as when it comes to the hierarchy of monsters, the demon beats the beast every time. The three stalk out into the forest at the foot of the mountain where the monster makes its home and begins to search for it. After a little while, the beast finds them. When they get a look at it, they see that it's huge, standing at least 12 feet tall, heavily muscled, covered in thick red fur along the back and arms, and green skin at the neck and abdominal muscles, pointed ears, sharp elongated canines, horns on his head and spikes on his shoulders, and large hooves for feet. The king of monsters lets out a loud R-O-A-R-R-R-R-R-R before moving to attack the three siblings. All of them scatter, with Lisana calling out, Animal Soul. Wings. Animaru Soru. Yuingusu, as her arms turn into large green wings with pink feathers and she takes to the sky. Meanwhile, Elfman yells out, Beast Soul. Black Bull. Basuto Soru. Kokugyu, transforming his right arm up to the shoulder into the black arm of an unknown monster, and rushes the beast, meeting it fist for fist as it tries to attack Mira. With the beast being held back for the moment by her younger brother, Mira looks up in the sky and yells to her sister, Lisana, stay back and leave the fighting to me and Elfman. Go back to town and tell the mayor that this might take a bit longer than we thought. The younger white-haired girl nods her head and responds, Okay, Mira-ne. Please be safe, Ne-chan. Ni-chan. And takes off back towards the village. With Lisana gone, and noticing Elfman beginning to lose ground, Mira smirks evilly and releases her magic. A large purple magic circle appears underneath her, bathing her in purple light, as her form begins to change and she yells out, Satan Soul. Her body is covered in flat, square-shaped scale-like parts, which subsequently disappear, revealing her new appearance. Her hair is now wilder and curlier, jutting straight upwards. She now has a zigzag-like marking over her right eye, and a similar one over her right breast. She is dressed in a dark, skimpy one-piece suit revealing her arms and legs, which is open on the front and the back, exposing most of her belly, wide cleavage and upper back too. Such cloth has lighter colored edges taking on spiky shapes, and her similarly spiky collar is tied around the neck by a cravat tie. Her shoulders are tied in some thin belts protruding from her one-piece suit, and her feet are covered by matching, high-heeled thigh-high boots, which are decorated by lighter motifs on their upper parts, taking on the shapes of jagged blades pointing downwards on the front of her legs, and on the lower parts, in correspondence to her ankles and feet. Her forearms and hands receive noticeable changes, becoming covered in scales and each sprouting a fin-like protrusion on its outer side with metal gauntlets covering the back part of her transformed arms. She also grows a large, stocky tail seemingly made of metal plates or scales, getting smaller and smaller near its end, and large, leathery, bat-like wings. This is the form that is responsible for her moniker, the Demon. Once her transformation is complete, she sees Elfman get knocked away by the beast, and decides it's time for her to get involved. She takes the air and quickly closes the distance between her and the monster and punches it in the face, sending the beast flying back into the mountainside. The creature is stunned by this, but quickly recovers and rushes the demonic woman, launching a wide punch at her, which she dodges with ease thanks to her smaller size and enhanced speed. She gets inside its guard and kicks it in the chest, before spinning mid-air and landing an axe kick to its left leg, bringing it to one knee, but before she can capitalize on this, she is backhanded by the beast and sent tumbling away through the air. Elfman, seeing his opportunity to get in a few licks, quickly rushes the beast, changing his arm along the way and calling out, "Beast arm! Iron bull! Tetsugyu!" transforming his arm into metal, and increasing his punching power. He scores an uppercut to the monster's chin, sending it straight up into the air. He goes after it and manages to land a couple of solid punches to its stomach. However, the beast recovers quickly and lands a kick to the large teen, sending him flying through some trees, and giving him more SCS and bruises. Mira Jane comes back with a vengeance, unleashing a double axe handle strike upon the beast's head so powerful it sends it crashing face first into the ground. She then unloads a combo of punches, kicks, and even a suplex on the monster, all which have mild effect, yet nothing she does will keep it down. Finally, she gets a bit tired of the monster and decides she'll resort to magic, and so getting some distance between them, she brings her hands together and begins to charge a ball of dark energy between them. The beast stands back up, roaring once again, and makes to charge Mira Jane. However, the woman finishes charging her attack and throws her hands forward, calling out, "Demon Blast! Akuma Burasuto!" and fires out a large dark purple beam of energy at the monster. It hits and sends the beast flying through trees and boulders, and causing the monster its first real wounding, a large gash in its chest. When it gets up after the attack, Mira curses, but noticing the wound she managed to inflict, smirks. The beast roars in pain and rage before charging straight for the white-haired takeover mage. However, before it reaches her, she raises her hand quickly, causing a black-purple magic seal to appear next to it as she intones, "Evil Push! Aku Pushu!" which blasts the monster in the opposite direction. Beginning to feel her stamina slightly drained, the S-class mage decides to end it with one last attack. She looks over to see her brother finally up again and yells out, "Elfman! I need you to distract the beast for a couple of minuets. I'm going to end this thing here and now." As the only male Strauss sibling looks up at his elder sister, nods his head and replies, "Okay, Nei-san. But make it quick, I won't be able to hold him for long," as he rushes after the beast. In the meantime, the demonic woman channels her magical power into the space between her hands, forming a dark spherical vortex that begins to absorb all the energy in the surrounding area. As Elfman fights with the beast, taking quite a few licks,